Wait, Catherine just left.
To prom.
Oh, should I start? Are we on? We're on. Okay. Hello, everyone. They can't hear me. Hello. Hi.
Good evening, everyone.
Dude, use the gavel.
Oh,
Finally.
I can use the gavel for this. Hello. Thank you. And welcome. Okay, welcome to the Board of Education meeting of June 11th, 2025. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Natalie, would you please reiterate our executive session motion?
Yes. We met to discuss the particular employment history of a particular individual and a particular student.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We have a full agenda tonight, and we'll begin with our celebration of excellence. This evening, we are proud to recognize Kira Findikian, who through our district's science research program, competed in the Regeneron International Science and Engineering Fair, the world's largest pre-collegiate STEM competition. This year's event was held in Columbus, Ohio, and it brought together over 1,600 finalists from more than 60 countries, regions, and territories. Kira's outstanding work is a testament to her dedication and talent. Congratulations, Kira. We also extend our appreciation to Dr. Callahan, Mr. Beltakis, Mr. DeBello, along with everyone else who contributes to the continued success of our science research program. And to all, oh, yes. Yes. And to all the students continuing in the program, your work is incredible. I saw it firsthand at last week's symposium. Best of luck with your research and data collection over the summer. Tonight, we are also celebrating a remarkable group of individuals, 17 dedicated members of our district staff who are retiring from the Pelham School District. While it's bittersweet to say goodbye to such talent and experience, we wish each of you the very best as you begin this exciting new chapter. Congratulations, and thank you for everything you've given to our schools and our students. We also welcome Mr. Llewellyn this evening, who will be providing an overview of the implementation of the new bell-to-bell cell phone ban, which became state law this spring. Additionally, we will have a first reading of the board's new cell phone policy, which, like all of our policies, is very closely aligned to the law. Thank you, Mr. Llewellyn, and to everyone who participated in the working group or offered feedback on this important issue. Finally, I want to wish everyone a strong finish to the school year. Every student should be proud of their personal growth and achievements this year. Whatever that form that's taken, it looks different for everyone, and I hope every student takes a moment to reflect positively on the effort they've given their schoolwork and activities this year, and then to be sure and go enjoy their summer. While we have one more board meeting before summer, it will take place after graduation activities, so I want to say congratulations in advance to all students and families who are celebrating a moving up, and especially to the Pelham Memorial High School class of 2025. See you next Saturday at graduation.
Very good.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Do I have a motion? We'll take 3.1. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the April 2nd, 2025 business meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. None opposed, so that motion carries. Okay, we can move to 4.1.
I am pleased tonight to to take a few minutes to honor a very special student who has achieved something incredible on behalf of Pelham Memorial High School, herself and her family. Kira Fendikian has, as Jackie has said, was a finalist in the 2025 International Science Engineering Fair, one of the highest accomplishments that a high school student can do in the world of science, and she has done that just with amazing grace and incredible intellect. So at this time, I'd like to invite Kira up, and I'd also like to invite Dr. Callahan up to say just a few words about Kira.
So Kira and I were speaking, I think today, it seems like the days have kind of blurred together, but both of us have already spoken about how we're getting nostalgic. And this is a really, really, really special group of seniors this year, but also a really, really special group of teachers that are retiring this year. So I said that I'll probably, for the first time in a little while, need some sunglasses at graduation, because it's definitely going to be a difficult one. So Kira's also served as the president of the student government for the high school as well. So she's given some great speeches, most recently in honor of Mrs. Calvelli at the Senior Awards the other night. So there's lots of celebrations ahead. So on behalf of the entire science department, everybody in the high school, and certainly everybody in the district, we're certainly very, very proud of your accomplishments, and having witnessed your hard work these many years, it's definitely well earned. I thought it might be appropriate to ask you to come up and give your elevator speech, but if I do that, before I do that, I also want to acknowledge Dr. Tortorella, and I'm sure you're going to acknowledge Dr. Tortorella as well, but we've had an amazing support system on the science research side of things. One of our retirees tonight also kind of set the stage for our science research program in the high school, so we'll be talking about her a little bit later too. But congratulations. Let me turn the mic over to you so you can give your elevator speech. And
Okay, hi everyone, and congratulations to all the teachers. Like Dr. Callahan said, thank you so much. You were truly so incredible, and again, none of this could have been possible without all of you. So my research found the lowest dosage of two novel therapeutics, an antibody called 1C10 and a drug called MBX 4992 that effectively limits cytomegalovirus proliferation as effectively as current therapeutics, but using up to 96% less of a dosage. And this is significant because these high dosages of the drugs that are currently being administered can result in a wide host of morbidities in the patient. So I found those dosages specifically to be 0.2 micrograms per milliliter of 1C10 and 1.5 micromolars of MBX. And some exciting things happening in the Tortorella lab since then. There's a patent officially now on 1C10, the antibody specifically. And my mentor, Dr. Tortorella, has been in conversation with pediatricians specifically to look at synergistic approaches, so using 1C10 with the current therapeutic called cytogam and ganciclovir to see if that would have a better effect in a very young pediatric population, to see if that would more effectively help them when they have cytomegalovirus, and if they could tolerate the drugs. Again, that would be better at lower dosages. So thank you all.
And I have to echo Dr. Callahan's nostalgia. My first year in the district, I remember seeing Kira and Julia. I think it was at Colonial. Yep, in fifth or fourth grade. And I just to watch them blossom all these years has just been amazing. So they and this whole class is very special to me in that sense, because that was my first elementary group getting up there. So thank you. And on a related note, I did want to also take a moment to honor some of the teachers that were part of this incredible program. And they may or may not be here tonight. I know at least two of them are, because I've seen them. So if they wouldn't mind coming up for just a moment, I know that we recognize you all the time, but we can never recognize you enough. What you do is just exponentially meaningful to kids for years to come, and it has just changed lives. So if you could join me in honoring the teachers of the Science Reachers program specific to this honor tonight. So Maria Buckley, Steve Beltekis, and Sabrina Scasio. Thank you. Thank you. And also want to recognize, too, Mr. DeBello and, of course, Dr. Tortorella for their work in the high school as well, and we will get certificates for them. Could not do this without them. So with that, I think we will transition to the other event of the evening.
Yes, we can move to 4.2, retiree recognitions.
Okay. So, good evening, honorees, administrators, colleagues, family, and friends. It is truly my honor and privilege to welcome you all to this very special event. It's an evening dedicated to reflecting on the impact that each of the honorees tonight has made in Pelham and express appreciation for all you've given in service to the students and the families of the district. This year's school theme for us has been, "We Are Pelham, What's Your Story?" And as I reflected and prepared for tonight's event, it became very clear to me that the 17 extraordinary individuals who we come to celebrate tonight, they are Pelham, and they have written an extraordinary story and lasting part of our the story that will be Pelham for years to come. To our retirees, of course, thank you. Thank you for all of your years, in many of your cases, your decades of service, commitment, and professionalism. You have shaped hearts and minds of countless students. You supported your colleagues, guided families, helped uphold and advance the values that we as a district hold dear, even through the hardest of times. When the pandemic came and turned the world upside down, and education in particular, you did not abandon ship. But instead, you remained firm in your commitment to your craft and your students, and you saw us through until all was restored back to good order. So many districts saw just a complete exodus of teachers at that point in time, but not Pelham. We actually had some of our lowest retiree rates through that period, and that's testament to the commitment of this faculty and staff. Our district mission, inspiring a standard of excellence for all students, is not just a slogan printed on a website or an email tagline. It's a commitment that we all strive to live by every day. And no one has lived that commitment more fully or more consistently than the retirees being honored tonight. Whether in the classroom, the front office, the help desk, behind the scenes, or even with mechanical tools, keeping the brick and mortar workings of our buildings in good order, you have exemplified professionalism and purpose. You've brought skill, knowledge, and deep care to your work. You've challenged students to grow, you've supported them when they struggled, you've modeled a growth mindset, and you've cheered them on to every success, whether small or large. You've been mentors, coaches, guides, directors, role models, trusted adults, and in some cases, the only steady force in their lives. And your contributions have extended far beyond the school walls. You've coached, directed plays, led clubs, volunteered at events, served on committees, and connected with families, and helping to knit the fabric of our school community together in ways both visible and unseen. There's a quote by author Henry Brooks Adams. I think we're all very familiar with it. But I think it's very profound at the same time and captures your legacy perfectly. A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops. The quote reminds us that what you've done doesn't end here tonight, or doesn't end when school ends on Regents Rating Day. Your impact continues quietly, powerfully in the lives of the students you've nurtured, in the colleagues you've mentored and uplifted, and in the learning community that you've helped to shape. It's impossible to measure the full reach of your work, but we will see it in the confidence of the students who walk out of our doors a little taller, a little stronger, and a little more prepared for the real world because of your influence. We hear it in the grateful voices of parents, families, and colleagues, and we're going to feel it tonight as we celebrate not only your careers, but your legacies.
Retirement is a milestone that certainly comes with mixed emotions that I know we're all feeling tonight. While we are so excited for you to begin this next chapter and jealous, if we're all admitting the truth, we all know how much your presence will be missed. And the beauty of a career in education is that, as we've said, your story doesn't end here. The seeds you've planted will continue to grow long into the future. So tonight, we celebrate you with deep admiration, heartfelt thanks, and warmest congratulations. On behalf of the Pelham Public Schools and the entire community, thank you for inspiring excellence, not just in your students, but in all of us every day. We wish you all a happy, healthy, and many new adventures in the years ahead. You have earned it. Congratulations. And at this time, I am pleased to turn the microphone over to Dr. Fitzgerald to MC the remainder of our program.
Tonight we gather not just to mark the end of a school year, but to celebrate the remarkable careers of several dedicated educators and staff members who are retiring from our district. Retirement from education is not the end of a career. It is the culmination of a lifetime spent shaping minds, nurturing hearts, and making a lasting difference in the lives of students and colleagues alike. It marks the beginning of a well-earned new chapter filled with freedom, joy, and reflection. Each of our retirees have given so much to our school community through their years of commitment, care, and quiet leadership. They have inspired students, supported families, and lifted up their colleagues in ways that have strengthened the very fabric of our schools. To help us recognize each retiree individually, I'd like to invite the administrator who knows them best to say a few words and honor their incredible impact. We'll begin with the retiree recognition of our elementary colleagues. I'd like to welcome Mrs. Garcia, principal of the Colonial School, to the podium to share a few reflections about second grade teacher, Mrs. Claire Cavalli, and lasting influence she has had on our students and the school community.
Do this together. Claire was my first friend in Pelham. She came to see me when I first started. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I bought you a bottle of champagne.
She did. Drank it that very first day. No. It's truly an honor to stand here tonight to celebrate someone who has truly touched countless lives in the most profound ways, Mrs. Claire Cavalli. While tonight we celebrate her retirement, it also marks something much more significant, the celebration of a career defined by compassion, excellence, and the kinds of quiet, steady impact that truly lasts a lifetime. Claire's journey in education has always been rooted deeply in her heart. Long before she stepped through the doors of Colonial Elementary School, she had a vision, a calling really, to be more than just a teacher. In her original introductory letter, do you remember this? She described herself as a role model, innovator, philosopher, and lifelong learner. But even more beautifully, she spoke of her desire to spark children's natural curiosity and instill in them a lifelong love of learning. For more than 2 decades in Pelham, that's exactly what she's done day in and day out. Before joining our district, Claire taught in the South Bronx, working with all different types of students, including gifted and talented class. She brought learning to life through creative, hands-on approaches, and even then, her creativity, resourcefulness, and boundless enthusiasm were clearly evident. Claire joined Colonial as a leave replacement, and it took just 9 days for the district to really realize what a treasure she was, and her role quickly shifted to probationary teacher. It was clear from the beginning that Claire belonged here, and that she would leave an enduring legacy on our school. Over the years, she built a classroom where magic happened, where students discovered the joy of reading, the wonder of science and math, and the priceless confidence that comes from knowing their teacher truly sees them. As one of her first parents beautifully wrote, "We feel so lucky to have Ms. Cavalli as our child's teacher. Her enthusiasm, her creativity, and her love for what she does shines through every day." Another parent shared their amazement seeing their child recite Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech, a powerful moment made possible by Claire's deep belief in the power of student voice and presentation. Claire has always gone above and beyond, not just for her students, but for our entire school community. She stepped into leadership roles, serving as teacher in charge at Colonial, as well as building representative for the Teachers Union, and participating in the math textbook review team. Her contributions were consistently praised for her professionalism, leadership, flexibility, and above all, her deep commitment to doing what's best for children. But as anyone at Colonial will tell you, it's the little things that truly matter. The genuine smile in the hallway, the supportive hand on your shoulder. One colleague beautifully shared, "When I think of Claire, I think of her big heart and her sincere desire to help those around her. She makes everyone, students and staff, feel valued and cared for." There's only the infectious humor and joy that Claire brings with her everywhere she goes. One colleague vividly remembers being a nervous teacher candidate at her first interview. Her hands were shaking. Claire sat beside her later and told her she wanted to reach across the table and hold her hand. And that's Claire, always steady, always kind, and always reaching out. And then, of course, there are her famous dance moves at musical events. A delightful reminder that joy, laughter, and celebration have always had a vibrant home in her classroom. So Claire, your impact is etched in the confidence of a struggling reader who now believes in themselves. It's the heartfelt notes from parents years later, thanking you for truly seeing their child. It's the countless students who will carry the lessons they've learned from you, not just academic ones, but the invaluable lessons about kindness, perseverance, and believing in yourself for the rest of their lives. You have shaped generations, and you've done so with grace, integrity, and boundless love. As author Brad Henry once said, "A good teacher can inspire hope, ignite imagination, and instill a love of learning. And Claire, you've done all that and so much more." On behalf of your students, your colleagues, and the families whose lives you've profoundly touched, thank you. Thank you for the laughter, the learning, the unwavering care, and the incredible heart you've poured into our school. We wish you the most joyful retirement, filled with peace, happiness, and everything you love most. You will always be cherished as part of Colonial, because Colonial will always be where the friends are. And Claire, you have truly been one of the best. So congratulations and thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Tonight we have 3 retirees from the Hutchinson School. Teaching Assistant Casey Pascarella, Secretary to the School Principal, Mrs. Pasco Perino, and 4th grade classroom teacher, Ms. Gail Sider. I'd like to invite the principal of the Hutchinson School, Mrs. Jen Keene Thompson, to help us celebrate their enduring legacy.
Okay, I'd like to invite up Casey Pascarella. As we come together to celebrate Casey's retirement, I want to begin by acknowledging a role that has defined her career: caregiver. A caregiver is someone who provides consistent support to others, physically, emotionally, or practically, often anticipating needs before they are voiced, doing so with empathy, patience, and reliability. It is not a title that is always appearing in a job description, but it's a role that Casey has fulfilled in every setting she's worked in. Casey's professional journey began as a day treatment teacher at United Cerebral Palsy, where she supported adults with disabilities in developing their skills and functioning as independently as possible. In this role, she embodied what it means to be a caregiver, helping others navigate daily challenges with dignity, building trusting relationships, and ensuring that each individual received the tools and encouragement they needed to succeed. At the Young Adult Institute, Casey continued this role, serving as head sensory motor teacher. She supervised both clients and staff, coordinated programs, and led with a hands-on, solutions-oriented approach. Being a caregiver in this context meant managing the complex needs of others with calm and clarity and building systems that allowed people to feel safe, seen, and supported. Her transition into the school system, first in Wappingers, then Fishkill, and later Abilities First, marked a new chapter in her caregiving work. As a special education and CET teacher, she offered personalized instruction, structured supports, and consistent advocacy for students and families alike. Whether it was modifying a lesson or helping a family navigate next steps for their child, Casey provided the kind of care that builds trust and enables progress. Once Casey joined Pelham, her impact continued to grow. She served as a teaching assistant at Prospect Hill, Colonial, and finally Hutchinson, always bringing the same sense of steadiness, observation, and support. In her most recent role in our K-1-2 classroom, she has been a quiet force, supporting students with the right tools at the right time, understanding what each learner needs to feel successful, and stepping in for teachers with professionalism and calm. She also stepped up to serve as our extended school year teacher each summer, ensuring that students continued to receive compassionate, structured support even when school was officially out of season. And when there were unexpected needs, Casey showed up without hesitation. She served as a leave replacement not once, but twice this year alone, and also filled as a leave replacement in the K-1-2 classroom in 2021 and 2023. In each case, she didn't just take over a role, she provided continuity, structure, and care at a time when students and staff needed it most. This caregiving, at its core, stepping in, reliable, and with empathy when others are counting on you. Outside of school, Casey continues in this role as a caregiver to her in-laws, organizing their care, advocating on their behalf, and ensuring their needs are met with the same thoughtful attention she brings to the classroom. As Casey retires, we are saying goodbye to more than a colleague. We're recognizing someone who has consistently embodied the true definition of a caregiver. Someone who leads through service, who supports others without seeking attention, and who makes spaces feel more stable and more human simply by being present. Casey, thank you for all you've given to our school community. We wish you time for yourself, moments of well-deserved rest, and continued fulfillment of this next chapter. Congratulations on your retirement. I'd like to invite up Pasqua Perino. Okay, we had a lot of conversation about what this is going to look like, so I hope you can be with me on this journey. Oh my God. Born in a small peasant town in Italy, Pasqua Perino came to the United States at just 10 years old, bringing with her the warmth, wit, and resilience that would one day become the foundation of her legacy at Hutchinson. A proud native Italian and now a citizen of the world, she has lived her life with humor, heart, and a deep sense of connection to people across languages and cultures. As she sets off into retirement with plans to travel far and wide, it felt only fitting to honor her journey with a farewell speech styled as a grand tour, a celebration of the one and only Pasqua. Ciao, Bella, your all-inclusive tour of the one and only Pasqua Perino. From Manhattan to Pelham, a journey worth celebrating. Welcome to the grand finale tour of a Hutchinson icon. Grab your passports, folks. We're taking a whirlwind tour through the unforgettable career of our one and only Pasqua Perino. Part heart, part humor, part high standards. This is a journey you'll want to remember. Stop 1, Big Apple beginnings. Advertising Avenue. Long before the front desk at Hutchinson, Pasqua was crafting campaigns in the fast-paced world of Manhattan advertising, working on print ads for movies in the New York Times and other major publications. Yes, bright lights, bold ideas, and an espresso in hand. Step 2, Barbecue Boulevard, where it all changed. Sometimes fate serves up hot dogs and a new life direction. At a neighborhood barbecue, she met a family from Pelham that shared their love of our schools, and just like that, she knew, I have to work there. That spark led her to us. Destination Hutchinson School since 2010. She arrived and everything changed. For the past 14 years, Pasqua Perino has been the glue of Hutchinson, 15 years. Not just a secretary, she's the heartbeat, the memory bank, the comic relief, the trusted translator, the nurse on deck, the behind-the-scenes miracle worker. She handles it all: purchasing, attendance, infinite campus data entry, and the all-important lunch count. Every morning, she tallies meals, orders hot lunch, and if there's ever a mix-up, she's already on it, making sure every child gets exactly what they need. This may sound like routine tasks until you realize the precision, patience, and problem-solving they demand. And Pasqua, she makes it look effortless. Humor included in every package. Laughter guaranteed, whether it's a side comment in Italian, a perfectly timed joke, or just that mischievous glint in her eye. Her sense of humor has kept this school running on joy even on the longest days. Language immersion. Italian meets Spanish. Only Pasqua could take her native Italian and make it to master Spanish, and just in time to serve families with warmth, laughter, and compassion. She's been known to break into fluent, joyful Spanish on the phone, in person, or in the hallways, creating instant belonging. Warning, fear zone ahead, timesheet territory. She may be beloved, but don't be mistaken. Miss a deadline on your attendance form or your timesheet, you'll feel the heat. Her standards are as high as her heart is big, and she expects nothing less than excellence from herself and from you. Hidden gem, the principal's Lifeline Lounge. This year, my first year as principal, she was my constant. The calm in the chaos, the knowledge keeper, the steady hand. I'm the third principal she supported. Carla Tarazzi and Trisha Fitzgerald came before me, and somehow she made it look easy. Her ability to adapt, anticipate, and quietly lead from behind the scenes all made the difference. She carried the weight of transition with grace and made sure nothing was ever dropped. Every question had an answer, every challenge a solution. She didn't just support me, she helped shape this year into one of growth, steadiness, and success. Reviews from our travelers. She makes you feel like you've known her forever. She keeps everything and everyone together. She's the soul of our school. Final stop, well-deserved retirement resort. So now, as she sets off on her next chapter, one filled with relaxation, joy, and let's be honest, probably some high-quality espresso, we wish her, I'm going to say this wrong, buon viaggio. Her legacy will echo through the halls of Hutchinson for years to come. Grazie, Pasqua Perino. We'll miss you more than words can say. You've left your mark on this place and all of us.
Oh, thank you. Grazie.
The last person I'm speaking about is Gail Sider, and she couldn't be here today and asked me to read a statement on her behalf. Though my health situation prevents me from being with you this evening, please know how grateful I am for this recognition and for all the support provided me by the board and the administration these past 25 glorious years of teaching and learning. As the Talmud says about learning, I have learned much from my teachers and from my colleagues, more than my teachers, but for my students. I have learned more than them all. Thank you. Before we begin, it's important to know something about Gail. She is an avid journaler, specifically a gratitude journaler. You can often find her in the morning sitting quietly in her car, pen in hand, taking a few reflective moments to center herself by writing down what she's grateful for, before stepping into a building where she would spend her day lifting others. In honor of that beautiful ritual, I thought it only fitting to celebrate her career in the structure of a gratitude journal. 1991, grateful to say goodbye to tax law. It turns out spreadsheets and statutes can't compare to stories, teaching science, or the sound of children learning to read. Leaving behind that career path opened the door to something much more meaningful. 1992 to 1997, grateful for a winding and wonder-filled path. The years that followed were spent bringing books and nature to life, whether through the Briarcliff Manor Education Foundation or at Tree Camp, where reading met tree-lined trails and drama unfolded under open skies. It was there that a passion for learning, teaching, and connecting with children truly took root. 1998 to 2000. Grateful for the early days in Pelham. As a student teacher and intern at Colonial and Siwanoy, she poured her energy into every lesson, every read aloud, every student. She was already planting seeds of curiosity, care, and community. Her application to join our faculty included the words, "We educators are responsible for facilitating the development of literate, curious, and responsible citizens able to contend with life's challenges." At that, we knew she belonged here. 2000 to 2025. Grateful for a rich chapter at Siwanoy. For 15 years, she helped shape the Siwanoy community into a place where students felt seen, challenged, and loved. Beginning as a leave replacement and then earning her own classroom where mindfulness was modeled and taught through thoughtful routines, she helped students understand their own strengths, encouraged them to see themselves as leaders, and reminded them daily that they mattered. Grateful for her continued impact at Hutchinson. In 2016, she brought her expertise, energy, and generosity to Hutchinson, where she continued to teach, lead, and serve in countless ways. Grateful for her leadership, service, and care. She shared her love of books, learning, and reflection with colleagues, quietly supporting school initiatives, encouraging those around her to grow. She pushed herself and her team to think critically, advocate for students, and hold high expectations for kids and adults. Family partnerships matter deeply to her. She reaches out often, stays late for conversations, and worked to ensure every child felt supported. Coordinating Hutchinson's homework help program with the support from Pelham Civics became a meaningful part of her work. Focused on students from low-income backgrounds, it helps students strengthen skills and confidence. For many, it became more than academic support. It became a lifeline. Over the years, she's worn many hats: STEAM and science coach, 24 club advisor, union leader, and faculty advisory chair. In each role, she brought clarity, compassion, and a focus on what students needed most. Even on the hard days she showed up, she looked out for teammates, offered quiet support, and always did her best to make things better for kids, families, and for her school. 2025, grateful to celebrate a legacy. It's hard to measure a career in years or lessons, but we can measure it in lives changed, minds opened, and the example she set for all of us. She has shaped our students, lifted her colleagues, and strengthened this school district in ways that will long continue after she's closed her classroom door for the last time. We are so grateful for every moment, and we wish her all the joy, love, and adventure this next chapter holds, especially in the cherished time she'll now have to spend with her beloved daughters, Marielle and Jacqueline. May this new season be filled with laughter, unforgettable memories, and the same warmth she has given to all of us. Onward, Gail.
Tonight we have 5 retirees from Pelham Middle School. First this evening, we recognize the retirement of Mr. William Chimento, who has been a member of our Pelham Middle School community since June 2004, when he joined us as a leave replacement in the English department. In 2007, Mr. Chimento was awarded tenure, marking continued commitment to the district and to student learning. Throughout Mr. Chimento's time with us, he has taken on other responsibilities beyond the classroom. Mr. Chimento served as the co-advisor of the newspaper club, advisor to the journalism club, and English curriculum coach. In addition, Mr. Chimento contributed to our athletics program by coaching several sports teams, including soccer and basketball. We acknowledge and thank Mr. Chimento for his years of service, and we wish him well in retirement. As we continue to celebrate our middle school retirees, I would like to invite Ms. Sabia, Pelham Middle School principal, to speak about the meaningful contributions of our next 4 retirees: technology teacher Mr. Brian Battersby, middle school counselor Mr. Scott Brown, middle school science teacher Mrs. Maria Buckley, and middle school math teacher Mr. Daniel Friel.
Thank you. Jen, that's a tough act to follow. I'm not quite as funny as you. Well, I am in real life, but not in speeches. Brian, why don't you come on up? It's hard to believe the time has come to say goodbye to someone that has such an important impact and been such an important part of our school community for so many years. Today we celebrate the incredible career and well-earned retirement of Brian Battersby, our technology teacher. Brian has a BA in Communication Arts from Fordham University, an MBA in Marketing from Iona, Social Studies certification from Pace University, and a master's degree in Adolescent Education from Pace University. Prior to teaching, Brian had a career as the Media Business Strategy Consultant. That's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. His first teaching job was as a social studies teacher at Fox Lane Middle School, Harrison Middle School, and he also taught business at Harrison High School. Brian started his teaching career here in Pelham in 2007, where he was originally assigned to teach Computer Applications 8, 6th grade keyboarding, and Social Studies 8. This quickly turned into a full-time technology job. Brian has contributed to our community in countless ways. He has helped to facilitate PEF Exploratorium on 21st Century Learning, data curriculum coach, brought the district attorney in to present to our students on internet safety, has taught in the Middle School Summer Institute, middle school technology coach, has presented at Board of Ed sessions on digital literacy and fluency, and he's been the middle school activities treasurer. That's just to name a few. I'm sure I'm leaving some out. His colleagues describe him as a rock, steady, funny, and someone you can always count on. Students describe him as smart, caring, with a subtle sense of humor.
Emphasis on subtle.
For 18 years, Brian has not just taught technology, he's inspired curiosity, sparked creativity, and opened up new worlds for students. In an era where technology changes faster than we can sometimes keep up with, he has been a steady guide, leading countless young minds through the basis of coding, wonders of digital design, and the importance of using technology responsibly. But beyond the skills and lessons is his patience, the encouragement, and the genuine care Brian shows all of us that will be remembered most. He has turned his classroom full of tangled wires, error messages, into a place of discovery and excitement. As Brian moves on to his next chapter, one we hope that will be filled with relaxation, adventure, and maybe just a little less screen time, we want to thank him. Thank you for your dedication, your passion, your endless patience. You have left a lasting mark on this school, our students, and all of us. Brian, we wish you happiness in retirement. You've earned it. We will miss you. Next, Mr. Scott Brown. I've been calling him Cowboy Scott lately. He's been a little rogue, but
I'll let you work. Thank you.
we still love him. To say Scott has been the fabric of the middle school would be an understatement. He's not just part of our school's history, he has helped shape its heart, its soul, and its story. Scott's journey in Pelham began when he was in the 7th grade, as he arrived as a student after living all over the world, including Japan. He graduated from Pelham Memorial High School and went on to earn a BA in psychology from Keene State College and a master's in education and counseling from Hunter College. And then, true to his unwavering commitment to his community, Scott came back. He began as a guidance counselor intern and quickly became the middle school guidance counselor. In the late 80s, he played a pivotal role in transforming the school from a junior high school into the vibrant middle school we know today. But Scott didn't just contribute to the school community. He helped shape it. Here are a few of his contributions, and I'm sure I'm going to leave some out. He founded the first modified cross-country team, as well as the modified track team. He He coached varsity track and cross country and led the varsity cross country team to 7 league championships in a row. Most recently, after a hiatus from coaching, he returned to inspire student athletes as some of them broke the very records their parents once set under Scott's guidance. He helped develop a comprehensive 4-part orientation plan for incoming 6th grade students, including transition programs for parents, for new families, and for the whole Pelham community. He coordinated our middle school summer institute, advisor of the chess club, ran the service learning program, advisor of the enrichment program, film producer most recently, and tour guide, mentor for faculty and staff, and my favorite of all, his game club. Ultimately, if we could think of it, Scott would say yes, and he would make it happen. Referred by some as Foxy Brown. Sorry, Anna. Scott did it all. Students describe him as funny, always there for you, patient and caring. Colleagues describe him as steady, reliable, always willing to stop anything he's doing to help. Scott would do anything for anybody. For over 37 years, Scott has been the steady, compassionate heart of the school. When students faced their first big challenges, when families needed guidance, or when colleagues simply needed a listening ear, Scott was there, with patience, wisdom, and a calm strength that grounded us all. We often talk about counselors as people who guide and advise, but Scott has been much more. He has been a champion for students' well-being, a voice for inclusion, a role model of empathy, and a rock during hard times. There are thousands of students and families and staff members whose lives have been touched by Scott, many of whom carry with them the life lessons he instilled: to be resilient, to be kind, and to believe in themselves. This legacy will carry on, but can't fully capture all the things that Scott has done, but it will have a ripple through this community for generations. And there are the lighter moments, with smiles, bad jokes, heartfelt encouragement, the humor at just the right moment. Scott always knows when to offer a laugh to break the tension, a quiet word to lift someone up, or a thoughtful gesture to remind us that we're not alone. Scott truly embodies Pelham pride. He's always prepared, he's always respectful, he's always involved, he's determined, and above all, he's committed to excellence. As he embarks on this well-earned retirement, we know his presence will still echo through these hallways in the students he has helped shape, the traditions he has built, and the hearts he has touched. So Scott, thank you. Thank you for your decades of service, for your unwavering dedication, for your generous spirit you brought every day in every role that you filled. You have made Pelham better, you have made me a better principal, and you've given our school far more than your time. You gave it your heart. On behalf of the entire Pelham Middle School family, staff and students and parents, we wish you joy, peace, and endless adventures. Congratulations.
Thanks, Steve.
Sorry, Anna. Next up, Maria Buckley. That's true, we would have been in trouble. Maria reminded me if we grew up together, we'd be in trouble. Today, as we gather, not to simply mark an end of a career, but to celebrate an incredible legacy of a woman who has transformed the lives of countless students, colleagues, and families, Maria Buckley. Maria's journey began at Boston College, where she graduated summa cum laude with a degree in elementary education. I always knew she was really smart. She later earned... I hide it well. Not really. She later earned a master's degree in special education from the College of New Rochelle, further deepening her commitment to reaching every learner. Come on, don't do this to me. Principals aren't supposed to cry.
Yes, you are.
Before joining us in Pelham, Maria began shaping young minds as a first-grade teacher in Connecticut. In 1989, she brought talents to Siwanoy Elementary School, where she taught first grade for 5 years before stepping away to raise her wonderful children. who I had the privilege of working with when I was in the high school. They're wonderful.
Sometimes.
I know, thank you. Okay. In 1994, Maria turned to the classroom, this time at Pelham Middle School, where she began teaching sixth grade science. Maria's contribution goes far beyond the walls of the classroom. She has been a pillar of our school community, respected, admired, and deeply loved. She has served in countless roles. Presenter at the PEF Exploratorium, member of the Tri-States Evaluation Team, staff developer and presenter, co-team leader, STEAM coach for grades 6 through 8, JV field hockey, girls lacrosse coach, robotics club moderator, mentor to new teachers, and science Olympiad coach, to name a few. Maria's resume is long, but her true impact is immeasurable. Her students describe her as smart, fun, cool, caring, and makes them love science. Her colleagues describe her as creative, someone you can always count on, and she truly loves what she does every day, even after all these years. Her greatest accomplishment aren't framed on the wall. They're scribbled in the notebooks, floating in the memories like vinegar and baking soda reactions, or dropping things out of the classroom windows in carefully designed egg drop containers. They live in the wide eyes of students who finally understood Newton's law because Maria made it fun, real, and alive. She didn't just teach science, she inspired it. She didn't just prepare students for tests, she prepared them for life. Maria made every student feel seen, heard, and capable. The shy ones found their voices, the struggling ones found their strength, and the curious ones, they soared. She turned photosynthesis into songs through many hands-on experiments with plastic cups, paper towels, glue guns, pipe cleaners, and everything in between. Maria taught students to approach the world not just with answers, but with questions. Carl Sagan once said, "Science is a way of thinking much more than it is a body of knowledge." Maria embodies this truth. She gave our students a way of thinking, a lens of wonder, reason, and empathy through which they view the world. Her classroom wasn't just a room, it was a launch pad, a laboratory of ideas, a haven for curiosity, a place where mistakes were created as steps towards, that were created but made as steps towards discovery. Maria's world, failure was not data. It was questions and innovations and science. Above all else, it was adventure. Maria, as you hang up your lab coat, though we know you'll never stop wondering, experimenting, or exploring, we thank you. Thank you for your laughter, for the light in the eyes of every student that got it, for your patience, your passion, your tireless commitment to every single learner who walked through your doors. You have given the school community something that can never be measured, only felt. In the confidence of your students, the admiration of your colleagues, and the legacy you live. So here's to you, Maria Buckley, scientist, educator, mentor, and friend. May your retirement be filled with the same wonder and joy and discovery you gifted generations of the student. Thank you, and congratulations. And last but certainly not least, Dan Friel. Okay. Today, we gather to celebrate an extraordinary career of a teacher who has done far more than teach math. Dan Friel has inspired a love of learning, a curiosity for problem solving, and a belief in every student he's ever taught. Dan began his academic journey in Ireland, earning a BA in geography, sociology, and ethics from the National University of Ireland. He went on to study at Gregorian University, where he earned his certificate in Italian. That was really news to me. He continued his postgraduate work at Queen's University in Ireland. His passion for education took him across borders, literally, teaching both social studies and math in Switzerland before he found his way to Pelham. In 1993, Dan began his career in Pelham at Siwanoy Elementary School, teaching 4th and 5th grade. Then in 2009, he brought his talents to the middle school, where he's been inspiring sixth grade mathematicians ever since. For 32 years, Dan has walked these halls with purpose and passion. Day after day, he turned numbers into puzzles, equations into games, and yes, made math fun. But Dan has given our school community so much more than lessons or fractions and formulas. He's been a leader, serving as sixth grade team leader, curriculum coach, mentor for new teachers. He's coached both in the classroom and on the field, leading modified boys, girls, and soccer teams, and helping students grow in every way. He started the Math Matters program and brought students together through the 24 Club. He helped organize countless initiatives and take the lunch program in the elementary school and the yearbook. And who could forget the legendary fifth grade performance, The Shot Heard Round the World? I didn't get to see it, but I've heard about it. Dan has always seen his role as more than delivering content. He's shown generations of students that math isn't just about right answers. It's about thinking critically, staying curious, and believing in your ability to figure things out. He wrote in his personal statement how deeply he valued inclusion, building student confidence, and the importance of authentic assessment. And he has lived that philosophy every single day. Dan didn't just know students by name, he knew them by heart. He saw their potential, even when they couldn't see it themselves. Colleagues describe Dan as a rock, dependable, thoughtful, and always willing to lend a hand. He's intense, but in all the right ways, deeply focused. Students say he's smart, serious, caring, and someone they could always count on. Their favorite memory of Dan was when he dressed up this year as a leprechaun. That was kind of one of my favorites, too. Dan, as you step into retirement, we want to thank you, not just for the years of service, but for their care you brought to every moment. Thank you for your laughter, your leadership, your early morning, late nights, and never wavering in the belief in all your students and colleagues. Your legacy isn't in lesson plans or in test scores. It lives in every student whose confidence you nurtured and every teacher who you supported. You taught more than math. You taught kindness, resilience, and the power of truly showing up for others. We'll miss you deeply, but we celebrate you today. May you enjoy your retirement.
I've waited for 32 years for this. I'm going to borrow 2 to 3 minutes of your time. Sorry, Dr. Champ.
I'm in trouble.
No, not yet. Hold on. First of all, Kira Findickian, I taught her in 5th grade. I have no clue what the heck she was talking about, but it was amazing. It was amazing. So, as Frank Costanza once said in Seinfeld, I've got a lot of problems with you people. Now is the time to air those grievances. No, I'm only joking. I started my career in Belfast during the Troubles, teaching 4th graders. They knew how to make petrol bombs. I didn't. Went to Switzerland and taught the Crown Prince of the United Arab Emirates. And then I landed in Pelham to teach the true princesses and princes of this lovely town. I started with the legendary Charlie Wilson, Rocco Polero, and Joe Longobardi, and had the honor of working with Susan Gilbert and Lynn Sabia as well. So many people to be thankful for. This is my time to thank you. My colleagues in Siwanoy, including Mr. Griffith, Mr. Katz, Mr. Maley, Mrs. Sider, who I mentored for a year. It actually felt like I was the one actually getting mentored. In the middle school, I entered Shangri-La with Joe Longobardi. It truly was amazing. I have taught with the most brilliant math teachers in the country under Dr. Tom Callahan's not so brief meetings. I'm eternally grateful for the variety of characters, not only in the middle school, but especially in the 6th grade. I served as team leader for a few terms of office and have watched these amazing educators mold and entice and discipline ever so gently their students to give their best. They made me laugh hysterically every single day, helped me when I went through my own personal struggles. These people are family. Thank you. But the people I truly want to thank are the incredible, kind, funny, brilliant students who walked into my classroom every single day for the past 32 years, some here tonight. Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Kira. Thank you, Coco. Thank you, Josephine. And thank you, Dave Acasella, for many years. These are my rocks, and they sometimes, without knowing, saved me over the past 7 years. Their smiles lit up my life and made me stronger. I will truly miss Pelham. Serenity now. Let Festivus begin.
Tonight we have 6 retirees from Pelham Memorial High School. We will begin with Dr. Titone, Pelham Memorial High School Assistant Principal, who will speak of the lasting impact world language teacher Mrs. Anna Brown has had on her students and our school community.
I have some tough acts to follow, my goodness. But Miss Sabia, I know you got to talk about Foxy Brown, but I get to talk about Posh Spice. So, Anna Brown's first day in Pelham was September 1st, 1996. So let me tell you a little bit about those last 29 years. Anna was one of the first world language teachers to organize a European trip, ensuring that students had the first-hand opportunity to go abroad and use their language skills for real. Anna was class advisor several times during her career, most recently for the class of 2023. Both as class advisor and classroom teacher, students appreciated her consistent delivery of instruction and expectations, and the extra lengths to which she went to ensure that events like junior prom would be unique and special. A hobbyist crafter, Anna decided to spray paint the vases that would decorate the tables for the junior prom the year she advised them. The details mattered to her, and she wasn't going to just take the easy way out and go to Michael's. Her Spanish colleagues were grateful for her ability to maintain a rigorous curriculum rich for every one of her classes, especially Spanish 4 honors. Nobody can dispute that through the years, Anna had no problem whatsoever speaking her mind when she felt strongly about an issue. But despite that tough exterior, Anna can be incredibly sympathetic and caring in a time of difficulty. She could always be counted on to offer help and support when a colleague or student was dealing with a family crisis like an illness. She's often the first to appreciate and laugh at a funny moment among adults or students, and even more so when she herself might do something that's awkward or embarrassing. COVID was stressful for all, and Anna felt particularly concerned about the graduating seniors and the need to give them a proper send-off. She was the first teacher to send an inspiring video to rally the spirit of the seniors who were graduating that year during an unprecedented time. As a teacher, she was committed to modeling empathy to the students. Every September, colleagues and students always look forward to seeing what hairstyle and color Anna would be sporting for the year. Her sense of elegance and fashion style always set a very professional tone with a global flair. Her love of fashion and design carried over to Anna's excitement to coordinate the World Language Department's themes for the annual Halloween contest at the high school. Anna does love Halloween, and let's not forget every Christmas she would dress as Mrs. Claus. We'll get one more. As soon as the new calendar was released in March or April, Anna would begin to plan her vacations. By the time we left in June, Anna would have all of her vacations planned for the following year, leaving the rest of us with the pressure on to plan our trips. Her schedule always set the mood for the colleagues in the World Language Department. If Anna had first period free, the mood in the office would be light and jovial, but look out if she had to fight the traffic on Corley's to park and get to class by the first bell. Everyone knew to duck for cover if the traffic was bad on a particular day for drop-off. Her thoughtful planning, supporting students in the National Spanish Exam, World Language Week, Honor Society inductions, international dinners, reflect your deep commitment to not only the students that you teach, but how they learn and why it matters. From one of your seniors, Senora Brown, I wish I knew where to start, but this year alone, you've become like a second mom to me. I love coming to class as you greet everyone with a bright smile. I'm heartbroken to see you go, but I'm happy for you as you deserve a great retirement, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for the patience, precision, and presence that you brought to every class. You've given generations of students a gift of language to travel the world and make new connections with people around it. You've shared so many great moments with your colleagues, milestones in life, and it's been an honor to be alongside you for the many years at Pelham. Besides being an incredibly dedicated teacher, she's a loving mother to Sonia and wife to Scott, and genuine friend to many. Querida Ana, te vamos a extrañar tanto. Suerte hasta septiembre. Gracias.
I'd like to invite Pelham Memorial High School Principal Mr. Llewellyn to speak on behalf of the incredible contributions of our next two retirees, high school social studies teacher Mr. Eugene Kelly and high school English teacher Mr. Neil Schleifer.
Thank you. So Mr. Kelly could not be here tonight, but I'm very happy to be speaking on his behalf. And I had another piece of paper that oh, here it is. Okay. All right. Gene Kelly has taught social studies at PMHS since 1998. After earning his bachelor's and master's degrees from Iona, Mr. Kelly came to Pelham for his first teaching position, jumping in mid-year teaching economics with a tough group of seniors. Thankfully, he survived the experience and went on to teach at PMHS for the next 27 years, becoming the cornerstone of our world history program. Mr. Kelly's colleagues had a lot to share. Gene Kelly has shaped generations of Pelham students' minds, ignited passions, and in his own unique way, made social studies not just a subject, but a student obsession. PMHS students hold him in high regard as the social studies teacher who taught them how to study, how to write, and how to think. To them, the legend is retiring. For decades, Gene has stood at the front of his classroom ready to challenge young thinkers with high expectations, razor-sharp wit, and questions that could shake a freshman's confidence, yet somehow inspired them to write, revise, and write again. He didn't just teach students to write essays and papers with proper Chicago-style citations. He taught clarity, conviction, and courage in writing. He didn't just teach history, he made history come alive with vivid detail in his lectures. And while his standards were sky high, his classroom was always filled to the brim during academy period with students who just wanted to talk, to share, to listen, and to learn. His following has been described on more than one occasion as cult-like, but in a good way. Mr. Kelly is known for his laser-focused instruction, yes, but also for the moments of pure comedy genius that had students laughing while learning, engaging deeply while being completely entertained. More than anything, Mr. Kelly created a culture in his classroom where students felt seen, challenged, and believed in. One where feedback wasn't about grades, but about growth. Where learning was hard work, and yet somehow it never felt like a chore. He is that rarest of educators, the one students will remember forever, not just because he taught them something, but because he transformed how they think. As another one of his colleagues shared, Mr. Kelly was always a true inspiration for these kids. Even for those who struggle in his class, they adore him, and it's really sweet to see. In addition to his teaching, Mr. Kelly has served as the chess club advisor, a class advisor, and advisor of the Statistics and Sports Club, which I didn't even know existed. He's also evidently highly skilled at trivia, a true family man, and private, as you can see. However, given that Mr. Kelly is a PMHS graduate of the class of 1988, and I have access to all of the yearbooks, I had the opportunity to take a look at Mr. Kelly at 18 years old. Well, he couldn't be here tonight. Here is 18-year-old Gene. In his yearbook, Mr. Kelly professes his admiration for Van Halen, Def Leppard, Rush, and the Grateful Dead, as well as for the New York Giants. And he shared two quotes, one from Journey, "Don't Stop Believing," short and sweet, and another from the Grateful Dead song, "Touch of Grey." That was all I had to say, and it's all right. I will get by. I will survive. Thank you, 18-year-old Gene Kelly. PMHS will do our best to get by without you, but it won't be easy. Congratulations on your retirement. So our next guest is here tonight, Mr. Schleifer, if you wouldn't mind coming up. Neil Schleifer has been teaching English at PMHS since 2013, but he has been an important part of the Pelham family for much longer than that, when he began working here first as a dialect coach, evidently. Found that out just before, and then as Associate Director for our theater program, Sock and Buskin. Mr. Schleifer earned his BA and MA in English at Fordham University, and before lending his talents to PMHS, directed plays and coached forensic speech at Loyola. In his time at PMHS, Mr. Schleifer taught English 9, English 9H, English 10H, English 11, AP Language, Language Arts, Theater Arts, and Print Journalism. In addition to serving as co-director of Sock and Buskin and co-moderator for forensic speech for all of his time here, Mr. Schleifer was a former advisor to our school newspaper, the Pell-Mell. He has also served as advisor to the Philosophy Club and advisor for the Jewish Culture Club. As forensic speech coach, Mr. Schleifer has coached students to state and national championships. Mr. Schleifer is also a truly outstanding director of student theater, having been recognized, among many other honors, as Best Director of a Play by the National Youth Arts Council in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, and for Outstanding Costume Design in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. A skill Neil has also shown off in his many wins in our annual Halloween costume contest. His most recent production, Urinetown, is no exception, having earned a record 9 Metro Award nominations. Neil is also an accomplished actor who has performed in regional theater, off-Broadway houses, and on national and international tours, and in film and television. His IMDb biography reads as follows. Neil Schleifer was born in Brooklyn sometime before the millennium. His theatrical endeavors have taken him to 48 of the 50 states, sorry, North and South Dakota. This rubber-faced character actor has also been to Seoul, South Korea as Bert Healy in the musical Annie. There's got to be a great story behind that. Neil Schleifer also once lived around the corner from Harper Lee, author of the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel To Kill a Mockingbird. Very interesting. Neil is evidently also an ordained minister, which was news to me, and has officiated at weddings.
Let me know. Okay. I'm available
Mr. Schleifer is also a lover of puns, as well as a skilled writer of poetry, as he demonstrated at our annual Poetry Cafe this year with a very witty and moving poem about his impending retirement. He is a master of coordinating sweater vests and also practices Yola Boka Float, which is a Norwegian tradition of giving books to his students for the holidays. I'm very proud to have been a part of hiring Neil back at the beginning when he first came to Pelham Memorial High School, and I'm very sad to see him leave the classroom, although I'm sure, given all of his other myriad activities, I will still have plenty of opportunities to see him. Congratulations to Neil Schleifer on his well-deserved retirement.
Everyone's so much taller than me. Next, we celebrate 2 of our extremely talented Pelham Memorial High School science teachers, Mrs. Irene Gruber and Mr. Leonardo Pena. And who better to share their incredible contributions than our very own Director of Math, Science, and Technology, Dr. Callahan.
Dan's going to be really mad at me, but I'm going to add to my speech before I even start it. So I really have to say this, and sitting there and watching some of the most amazing people get honored tonight. Every year I look forward to the rejuvenation that summer brings, and knowing that a September will follow without you is particularly hard this year. So best part of my job is to teach, literally teach and learn across all 6 schools in the district. And this is a super hard group to see go. So that's off script. Sorry, Dan. I'm going to stick to it now. All right. So Leo Pena and Irene Gruber were not able to join us this evening, but I am honored to say a few words in gratitude for their service to the students of Pelham Memorial High School. Neither of these 2 remarkable teachers enjoys the limelight or public recognition. They are humble people who measure their accomplishments in the successes of their students. Knowing them both well, and for over a decade now, I can honestly say that they prefer celebrations centered around our kids because that is what called them to this career. They would not want a long speech, yet here I am, or an itemized account of what they have done in their many years combined here in our hallways. I will do my best to respect that, despite my tendency to tell stories that are on the longer side, because this is about them. Irene's classroom is across from my office. It's one of the most vibrant learning spaces I've encountered in my career. Students are constantly engaged, and they gravitate to the SUNY Forensics course she built from scratch. Its popularity leads to 3 to 4 sections per year of seniors enrolling in this hands-on, college-level science experience. Most people know of her very famous forensics culminating project, which involves unearthing bodies, just for clarity purposes, fake ones, at Glover Field, and identifying the famous cases they are associated with. Irene tends to every detail, using her spring break, digging holes, putting crime scene evidence in them, and then covering them back up. It takes several days of her vacation and was, until her children were older, a family outing. Most people would have given up on the forensics dig when the pandemic came around. They would have accepted that an active crime scene could not be simulated virtually for students. Irene decided to dig up her backyard, bury bodies there, and stream her dig over a Google Meet. She is, sorry art department, but I have to say it, she is the current and reigning, seemingly undefeated Queen of Halloween. Having won the science department, the faculty trophy again this year. She converted our wing into Disney World, complete with Cinderella's castle. Miss Gruber also built her carriage and had it wheeled through the hallway to greet students on Halloween last October. She wanted her last Halloween to be special, but she also wanted to win. She does it all for a positive school culture and for the students of Pelham Memorial. Probably most importantly, she is a huge Tom Brady and New England Patriots fan. So that support in enemy territory has been priceless. Across the hall from her is Mr. Pena. He has been for a decade the science coach for our department. His steady hand has guided us through so many different experiences over the years, from social distancing in the pandemic to changes in Regents exams. He's been a constant and true support system to all of our teachers. He is one of the most likable and genuine people you will ever meet. Stepping into his room is like going to a clinic on healthy academic environments. He was SEL before it was given a name. His kids pick up very quickly every year that they are valued and that he cares about them. Leo knows that students will not be able to learn if they are not ready to learn. He is the physical manifestation of one of my favorite quotes. It enlightens us with some advice and states that, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Maya Angelou. A few years ago, Leo approached me as he considered retirement, and then I think along with Miss Brown, if I'm not mistaken, a freshman class asked him to serve as an advisor with her. After accepting the role, he said to me, I guess I'll be here for another 4 years. I can't leave this group until it graduates. He stayed a couple more years even after that. Mr. Pena fulfilled his calling by being a science teacher. Leo likes to travel and enjoys spending time on Long Island. He does not like attention like this and is probably shaking his head, believing that I've gone too long in recognition of him. I think he's wrong. If I stayed up here all night, it would not be enough to really reflect our gratitude for the dedication of these two educators. I think the best evidence of this may be how hard it was to find their successors. More and more people with similar degrees and skills in these fields are choosing a life in the private sector. Applications are down in STEM, and there's a nationwide shortage of new teachers. That, I believe, is a reminder of how special someone has to be to spend their lives in a career that serves our community's most important assets. Leo and Irene would not want praise for that. They would want us to celebrate Kira, her senior class, and the other remarkable students of Pelham. But what will likely be a Thursday morning grading Regents exams, as they suggest that they made too big a deal of this milestone for them, I have to respectfully disagree. On behalf of the many students whose lives they've changed and our whole department, but as a nod to them, I'll stop talking in a second. Just please know we have been so very fortunate to work alongside you both. Good luck and our best wishes on the journeys ahead. Congrats to all the retirees.
To help us honor the remarkable journey of high school social studies teacher, Mr. Andrew Scott, I'd like to invite Pelham Middle School Assistant Principal and former colleague of Mr. Scott's, Dr. Thompson, to share a few words.
It is my profound honor and privilege to speak about my colleague and friend, Andrew Scott, upon his retirement. Legacy is a word we reserve for the end of someone's career. Andrew Scott's legacy touches every corner of our school community. Tonight, we're celebrating Andy's legacy that will continue to inspire and guide us for years to come. Andy began his career teaching in 1997 at St. Joan of Arc School after receiving a bachelor's and master's degrees in history from LIU Post. He then taught in the advanced placement and IB diploma programs for 5 years at Comac High School. In 2004, he entered the Pelham family with his trademark bow tie and encyclopedic knowledge of history. At PMHS, Andy has taught APUSH, U.S. Regents, Global History, Military History, and many other classes. Andy is a true lover of learning, especially reading and writing about history. In fact, in 2007, he wrote the curriculum for 5 different social studies electives, pushing the history department to expand our offerings and attract more students. And attract more students Andy did. All of Andy's classes burst at the seams with requests. Andy reaches all types of learners. He also developed the ACES summer program to help students access our AP program who might otherwise not have challenged themselves. Andy has served as the faculty advisor to Youth in Action, the faculty representative on the PTA, the founder of the Military History Club, the Gaelic League, and the Latin Club, and has been a member of the National Honor Society Teacher Advisory Board. Andy is a national APUSH grader for the College Board and is known around the country amongst high school teachers for his intellect, humor, and quick wit. In 2010, Andrew was honored in Westchester Magazine as head of the class, one of the brightest stars in teaching in Westchester County. He has sought out professional development even beyond history. In fact, he worked with English and science teachers to create a research guide, and he began a peer visitation program with English teachers to hone their craft together. Andy combines his passion for history with acting. He was an amazing Delaware congressional delegate, Caesar Rodney, in our production of 1776, and in 2010, Andy was an unbelievable Andrew Jackson when the department wrote and performed executive perspectives for students and the public. Andy loves living history, local history, and especially military history. He's a published author in peer-reviewed military journals. During our 7th grade encampments, Andy would assist and lead the regiments in full uniform. He has participated in many local reenactments and has helped our department learn how to churn butter and fire a musket in the breezeway. Speaking of experiential learning and military history, during one of our emergency evacuations, Andy happened to be in military fatigues, leading his class across Franklin Field to the lineup location when the Pelham Police Department uncovered an old military piece. It wasn't active. In room 233. You see, Andy had brought that piece to school for show and tell. We all would have loved to have heard the conversation between the Pelham officers, Janine Clark, and Andy that afternoon. Andy's true passion is Irish history and culture. He played the pipes for the Volunteer Fire Department in Nassau County, has taught Irish history to adults in his free time, and is currently an active member of the Pelham Regional Pipe Band with Dr. Callahan. Beyond his professional accomplishments, Andrew is a humble and supportive friend and family man with his beautiful wife, Bridget, and 4 adoring children, 2 of which are here with us tonight. I recently asked teachers to share their thoughts about working with Andy, and the responses were overwhelming. Here's a glimpse of the love and admiration that Andrew's colleagues have for him. Andy is our gentleman in a bow tie, a patriot, a supporter of the armed forces, a close friend and mentor, who is always brutally honest and there to help. He is approachable and downright fun. Every conversation with Andy, even the silly ones, leave you a better, wiser person. He is a teacher to the teachers, and he always graciously pauses what he is doing to engage in a shared pursuit of knowledge. Andy is the key glue that holds us all together. He deepens our discussions and builds a bridge between different perspectives. He admirably holds firm in the discipline and craft of history and insists on the value of knowledge and good argumentation. Andy's mere presence brings an unspoken calm to our office. Andrew introduces our new teachers to the values and expectations of the Pelham community. His academic expertise, passion for history, and storytelling abilities are awe-inspiring and set the bar high for the rest of the department. He keeps us real, and as his supervisor for many years, Angie kept me accountable. He also managed for many years the hoarding nature of the social studies teachers, especially me, with his annual purge of the office. Andy truly believes in his colleagues and their potential. He continually pushes us to want to be better and to never get complacent in our craft. Every September, after open house and at the end of the year, Andy exclaims, fooled them again. Andy jokes that he fools the parents into believing he is a fantastic history teacher. But no one is fooled. Andy really is the best of the best with an enormous intellect and a profound ability to teach history as a beautiful story. Andrew Scott also had quite a cult following. Teachers could hear, "Great Scott," being yelled down the hallway as Andy was followed by students sprinting to get to his club or just wanting to speak with him a little longer. Students deeply respect him, not only for what he teaches, but also for how he makes them feel. He makes his students feel heard, valued, respected, and inspired. When we put out a call to alumni to comment on their experiences with Andy, the response was once again tremendously moving and overwhelming. Dozens of students going back to the class of 2005 reached out. Here are a few of their quotes. Mr. Scott created a space for us to comprehend and critique the promises of our founding fathers. I will never forget the excitement in his eyes, the energy he presented with, or his sharp sense of humor when engaging a classroom. What I would not give to go back and hear about another battle, election, or scandal. I am so grateful to have been taught by Mr. Scott. I will always remember his enthusiasm, great style, and bright smile, which he brought to the high school. Thank you, Mr. Scott. It was an honor to learn from you. Mr. Scott built the pillars for the rest of my academic career through his emphasis on integrity, the importance of a well-organized argument, and the need to think about complex topics in an interdisciplinary way. He made me feel empowered to focus on more than getting the right answer by putting deep care into his feedback and helping us become better holistic thinkers. And one more quote. Sometimes you think back to put together the pieces of how you ended up where you are. I am currently a second-year history teacher in New York City, and besides my love of history and my belief in the mission-driven work, Mr. Scott is my singular inspiration and role model. His passion, encouragement, and dedication showed me how meaningful the teaching profession can be. I owe him so much. I'm sure I've broken the time limit for Board of Ed retirement speeches, but honestly, there are not enough words to put down on paper to truly express our appreciation for Andy. For the high school staff and students, Andy is a legend and a dear friend. Andy, you are our role model and our inspiration. Your legacy is secure, your impact immeasurable, and your place in our hearts permanent. Congratulations on your well-deserved retirement, and thank you for the extraordinary legacy you leave behind. We love you very much.
We also celebrate tonight 2 retirees who have touched all of us as they have worked district-wide to ensure that both staff and students had just what they needed to be successful. Our technology department assistant, Mrs. Janet Egan, and maintenance mechanic, Mr. Victor Torres. I'd like to invite our Director of Technology, Mr. Sabalos, to share some words in honoring our technology extraordinaire, Ms. Janet Egan.
I said I wasn't going to get emotional when I did this, but standing up here, it's a little hard for me, so I apologize for that, everyone. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here as we gather to celebrate an incredibly special person and mark a significant milestone in our life. We're here to honor our friend, colleague, and true cornerstone of our department, Janet Egan, as she embarks on a well-deserved retirement. Janet's career began in Pelham back in October of 2007. And for years, and I mean years, Janet was, without a doubt, the heart of this department. A little known fact, I was a 3rd director of tech in a year and a half when I started. And honestly, she had to put a lot of trust in me. And I will forever be grateful and thankful for taking that leap of faith in me. I don't think there's enough words to thank you for what that means to me and where I am now in my career here in Pelham. So thank you for that. Her presence was a constant source of warmth, stability, and quiet strength. AI seems to know a lot about you, Janet. When you walked in each morning, Janet's smile and her genuine interest in how you were doing really set the tone for the entire day. She created an atmosphere where everyone felt valued, supported, and by noon made sure everyone saw their tickets. But for some reason, when we saw those tickets start to go down, I felt like my work started to increase. There was not really a good correlation for me in that. Janet truly embodied the spirit, selflessness, by always putting the needs of others first. Whether it was tracking down something misplaced, helping us navigate a new system, or simply offering a kind word when we needed it the most, Janet was there. She had an ability to anticipate what was needed before we even realized it ourselves. Her dedication went beyond her job description. It was a reflection of who she is as a person, thoughtful, compassionate, and incredibly supportive. She was our go-to for everything, the person who kept us organized and on track. What was truly remarkable about Janet was her deep affection for her work, not just within our department, but her unwavering commitment to the entire district. She understood that her efforts, no matter how small they might seem, contributed to the larger mission of serving our community. She took immense pride in her role, knowing that she was an integral part of something bigger. That dedication was evident in every task that she undertook, every interaction she had, and every challenge she helped us overcome. When I ask her peers what they will remember Janet most for, the words are reflective of everything that we can think of. Hardworking, dedicated, and probably one of the most important, in my opinion, a trusted colleague and a friend. It's hard to imagine this department without Janet. Her institutional knowledge, her I'm telling you, it's incredible what they know about you. That's a joke, by the way. Her calm problem solving and her delightful personality will be profoundly missed. She's left a permanent mark on all of us, not just professionally, but personally. We'll miss her wisdom, her humor, and her steady presence more than words can say. But as much as we will miss her, we're also incredibly excited for her. Janet, you've given so much of yourself to this department and to this district for so many years. Now it's your time to relax, recharge, and embark on some new adventures. We wish you a long, healthy, and incredibly happy retirement filled with everything you love. From the bottom of my heart, and hopefully representative of our entire department and our colleagues in this district, thank you for everything. Your legacy of kindness, dedication, and service will continue to inspire us all.
Finally, please welcome our Director of Facilities, Mr. Condon, who will shine a light on the permanent mark that Mr. Victor Torres has had on all of our buildings and the Pelham community.
The best for last? Okay, good evening. I personally want to thank a lot of the teachers out here that have personally impacted my children, so I appreciate that. Well-deserved permanent snow day, right? All right, there you go. Victor. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Condon. I serve as the Director of Facilities, and I would like to thank the Board President, members of the Board of Education, and Dr. Champ for this opportunity to speak. I was told to be brief with my comments, so I'll keep it to 25 minutes or so. Today we gather to celebrate and honor someone who has been an integral part of the Pelham community for more than 3 decades, Victor Torres. Victor grew up in the Bronx, where his baseball skills brought him to Arizona, where he attended college and made a name for himself as a standout baseball player. He took that passion all the way to AAA ball, no small feat. It is clear that his drive and commitment on the field carried over to every aspect of his life. Eventually, Victor and his wife Susan made Pelham their home. For over 30 years, they've been a part of the fabric of the community. Victor has given much of himself, not just professionally, but personally, coaching youth baseball, mentoring youth athletes, and setting an example of what it means to lead by doing. 2 of his children have gone on to serve in the community as well, one working in the village DPW and another as a police officer. That kind of dedication runs deep in the Torres family. Victor started his career in the Pelham School District as a custodian, and it didn't take long before everyone to recognize his attention to detail and his strong work ethic. He was quickly promoted to maintenance, where his talents could truly shine. Over the years, Victor has played a critical role in countless projects that have made our schools safer and more secure. He was instrumental in installing the first camera systems, implementing our first generation of electronic locks, and building the security booths across the district. But Victor's impact goes beyond the work itself. He has always had a big picture view. He understands what it means to protect not just the buildings, but the people. He has constantly shown a deep sense of responsibility for the safety and the well-being of students and staff. Whether it's a call late at night, an emergency, or a weekend, Victor always answers. He's a person who gets it, he shows up, steps up, and follows through. This August, Victor will be retiring and moving to North Carolina, starting a new chapter of life. And while we are thrilled for him and a well-earned rest ahead, his absence will be deeply felt, not just here in the Pelham schools, but throughout the entire community. Victor, on behalf of all of us, your colleagues, your friends, your extended Pelham family, we thank you for your years of service, your loyalty, and your heart. You've made a lasting difference here, and we wish nothing but health, happiness, and plenty of time on the baseball field in your retirement. Congratulations, and thank you.
Retirement is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of the open highway. May you enjoy the journey ahead with all the joy and freedom you've earned. Congratulations to all of our retirees. We will miss you, but we wish you only the best in your retirement. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. If we could just ask the retirees for one more minute to do a group photo, it would be, we would very much appreciate it. And I know folks probably have some celebrations to get to. Thank you so much. And if you just come forward quickly, we'll do it quick and get you on your way. Thanks for being here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that was wonderful. And now we'll move to section 4.3, the Internet-enabled device implementation plan presentation. Mr. Llewellyn.
So yes, I will.
Thank you.
Invite Mr. Llewellyn up. Thanks to the administrators, secondary administrators, to Mr. Sabalos as well for staying after what is a very long, late night. But I know this is an important topic that impacts the entire secondary campus. And thanks to Mr. Llewellyn for what he's about to present tonight, preparing this and the work that's gone into this year. We do recognize it's late, so I did give him some advice to expedite. We want to do justice to the work that has been done, because it's been a lot of really thoughtful work throughout the year, but also want to recognize the late hours, so let the administrators get to bed at some point tonight so they can be back for the end of the year. So, but anyways, but thank you, Mr. Llewellyn, for the work you've done, the committee, and I'm just turn it right to you to lead things off for us tonight.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Champ. Thank you, Board of Education, for inviting me here tonight to speak on this topic. You'll excuse me if I'm squinting at you and at the screen, because the screen is small, and I wear readers, and I don't know what I'm looking at this point. So, so you're blurry. This is kind of blurry. We'll manage. So thank you. Just to give a little history and context to the topic. Obviously, impact of cell phone use on students is a real concern. We are currently following the 2024 digital device policy passed by the Board of Education, which allows student use at the high school outside of instructional time. In the fall of 2024, we convened a committee to assess the implementation of the current policy and explore additional limits on student cell phone use for future years. This included students, teachers, parents, and administrators. So just looking at our current policy for a moment, digital devices are not to be used by students during instructional time, except for pre-approved medical and instructional purposes or pre-authorized instructional purposes by their teacher. So teacher can say, you can take out your phones, use your phones. And it should transition to include most or all spaces being cell phone free as recommended by the administration in a transition plan. So the idea from the beginning, from a year ago, was that this year was going to be a transition year. And just by way of explanation, reminding folks, in all classrooms we have calculator holders, and students are typically putting their phones in those calculator holders while they're in the classroom. So we convened this committee, met 4 times, and as our assigned reading, everyone in the committee read The Anxious Generation. Everybody's been talking about this Jonathan Haidt book for the past year. Looking at the book for a moment, because I think this has driven a lot of the discussion, including at the state government level. Jonathan Haidt's book suggests that between 2010 and 2015, rates of depression and anxiety skyrocketed. This coincided with the adoption of smartphones, and traditional childhood experiences simultaneously involving independence and risk-taking were being replaced by screen-based childhood. This created a phone-based childhood, fundamentally altered adolescent development, and he spoke about why phones are so problematic in this regard. That teens are adopting phone use while their brains are still developing, particularly the validation seeking that's amplified by social media. It disrupts students' sleep, attention, ability to be alone without their phones, that social media platforms are extremely addictive, and this transition from a play-based childhood to a phone-based childhood has deprived teens of essential developmental experiences, unstructured play, face-to-face conflict resolution, etc. And given my time, 6 years as the assistant principal at the middle school, certainly a lot of this is borne out in changes in students' behavior with one another, particularly regarding their inability to resolve conflicts. He argues in his book, and again, not all experts agree with Jonathan Haidt, that this isn't just correlation, but it's causation. And his solution that he proposes is delaying smartphone adoption until young people are later in their teenage years, and having phone-free schools to restore healthier adolescent development. So our committee, at our meetings, had long, free-ranging discussions that touched on a lot of different topics. Here are some of the key themes. We were concerned over a lack of student attentiveness due to phones, impact on their mental health, and disruption to the classroom experience. There was also debate, and you have to remember we have had a number of students on the committee over their need for phone access in an emergency, during the college application process, dealing with jobs, dealing with family, etc. Folks had strong opinions on fairness, enforcement of the policy, and students' ability to have autonomy over their phone use. There were suggestions for different alternatives to a ban, including tiered policies, differentiated policies, students having more access as they got older, all sorts of ideas. We administered surveys to students, teachers, and parents, assessing their perceptions, the effectiveness of the current policy, and what their needs were. And our goal was to use all of this information to inform our future planning. So we gave these surveys. I have just a couple of key points from each one. This is from student feedback. What has the impact been of the new cell phone policy? We have about 40% of students indicated that students are using their phones less often than the previous year, okay, pointing to success of this policy. Students were asked how distracted they feel when they have access to their cell phone in class. About 84% said they're not distracted at all by their phones. I think we can take that with a grain of salt, but certainly it gives you a sense of where students' minds were at. Asking teachers about the impact of the new cell phone policy in the classroom, 73% said that this year's policy had a positive impact on their classrooms. We also asked teachers, and again, this is one of a number of questions, so this is just a sampling, how often they have students use their cell phones for classroom activities or class-related work. We had 16% more than twice a month, 16% every other week, 22% once a week, and about 46% they never had students use their phones. Okay, so we do still see students using their phones for curricular reasons in the classroom. We asked parents, one of the questions, do you feel students should be allowed to use their cell phones during the school day? And as you can see from just how colorful that first pie chart is, there was a really wide range of responses. And I think it's very clear, you know, we had 173 parents respond to the survey. This is not a monolithic group in terms of their opinions of students and their cell phone use.
And Sean, are those high school parents? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, only high school parents. That's a great question. And, you know, some said yes, but only with the teacher's permission. Yes, but only for an instructional purpose. Yes, but only for schoolwork. Yes, but only outside the classroom. You know, all over the place. Then we asked, do you contact your child via their cell phone during the school day? And we had 13% often, 45% sometimes, 32% rarely, only 10% never. So again, this is something that parents have gotten used to, being able to contact their kids during the day. So looking at some of the themes that came up, because in addition to the questions that we asked on the survey, we also had open response options. And this was actually, I was patting myself on the back. One of the first times I used AI for anything was to help create the kind of lengthy report on these surveys. Students gave mixed reactions. Some supported the current policy. Some wanted more flexibility than we had this year. No one was asking for less flexibility, for the record. They emphasized their need to learn responsibility and self-regulation, and the feeling that if our phones are totally taken away from us during the school day, we're not going to have those opportunities. Students also expressed concerns about emergency access to their phones, concerns around dealing with websites that they either wanted to access for their education or their teachers wanted them to access that were blocked, and wanting to use their phones for those purposes. They didn't love the pouches, and they suggested more teacher discretion, privileges based on age, GPA, etc. The teachers felt that when the policy is being enforced, there's improved student engagement, that there were inconsistencies in some staff members enforcing the policy with greater fidelity than others, that students were using their phones a lot in the hallways, going to the bathrooms to use their phones. There were mixed views on study halls. Some teachers feeling like it kept study halls very quiet and orderly if students were allowed to use their phones, other feeling that they should not be allowed, and they were looking for very clear rules, tech blocking tools with more flexibility, and making sure that the administrators are backing them up in disciplining students for using their phones when they're not supposed to. Parents, all over the place regarding how strict they feel policy should be, concerned in general about just folks being dependent upon their phones, looking for consistent enforcement, wanting to balance student well-being with learning responsibility regarding their phones, and mentioning other practices that came up in other districts, for example, yonder pouches, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So in the beginning of January, the committee was beginning an implementation plan to use that survey insight to pilot some different storage strategies, develop professional development if necessary for teachers, enhance digital citizenship curriculum. That's certainly something parents, students, teachers all looking for, and establish clear communication protocols around parents communicating with their kids. I mentioned the timeline because this was happening around January 16th or so. January 20-something is when the governor announced her plan. Challenges that we anticipated in moving forward as a committee: resistance to change, students and parents, making sure that there is consistency, hard to get everyone to enforce difficult policies in the same way. What are the logistics around phone storage, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, accommodating student needs around phones, and then managing devices other than phones. So what about Apple Watches? What about students' personal non-district issued computers, et cetera, that also make their way into the schools? So in January, Governor Hochul announced her law. The law that was announced in January was very, very similar to the one that actually wound up getting passed in May, that it would be effective for this coming school year, that we as a district need to post our plan by August 1st, that this is all New York public schools, and the goal is distraction-free environments and improved student mental health. So now we pivot to not saying that all of our previous work from September to January was a waste of time, but that this is going to guide our implementation of the governor's plan, which we have to do because it is the law. So looking at the governor's law a little bit as distinct from our policy that we were following in 2024-25, this is a bell-to-bell ban on smartphones and internet-enabled devices. And that's a phrase that I'm going to use. I use it for the title of this presentation. This isn't necessarily digital devices. There are a lot of devices that are digital. They're using zeros and ones in order to, have operations. My calculator is a digital device. This is internet-enabled devices. That there's local autonomy in implementing storage methods. Storage is another term that comes up a lot in the law. That there is $13.5 million, evidently, in state funding for storage solutions. Not sure how schools are able to apply for that. Haven't seen any more clarity, but evidently there's money there. That we must provide parent-student communication methods. So recognizing that parents have gotten used to communicating with their children during the school day, and that there are exemptions similar to what we had in our previous board policy, student needs via IEP 504, English language learners, that school-issued internet-enabled devices are allowed. In our cases, those are Chromebooks, so those would not be forbidden under the law, and that students can have simple phones. So if somebody's investing in a flip phone company right now, along with the Yonder Pouch folks, they're probably doing quite well. As a district, we have worked, and I'm a member of policy committee, on, in conjunction with our attorneys, developing a policy for a district that is going to fully comply with the state law in language that'll be easily understandable by our community, and with some tweaks to personalize things for our own district. We seek to, in the policy, completely restrict personal devices during the school day, while still supporting educational technology use through our district equipment and maintaining accommodations for students who need them. Students cannot have internet-enabled devices. This includes smartphones, tablets, wristwatches, smartwatches, during the entire school day on all school grounds. They must be stored in designated locations, and I emphasize stored because personally, and again, not a lawyer, but I play one on TV, the language I think is very clear in the law. It talks a lot about what an internet-enabled device is, what school property is, what storage is. Designated locations such as lockers. This applies to all instructional and non-instructional time and includes homeroom, lunch, recess, study halls, and passing. And that we will maintain spaces for face-to-face collaboration and teach digital citizenship at the same time. There are exemptions, as we mentioned. These require written authorization, documentation. The law also mentions, just to touch on this quickly, that there are cases where students are caregivers, whether for siblings, parents, et cetera, that they could have responsibilities, certainly at the high school level. And in those cases, there can be administrative approval for a student to use a device to keep in touch with, for example, somebody that they're taking care of. Enforcement will include a number of different measures to incentivize students following the rules. As is the case with the state law, a student cannot be suspended solely for using their phone when they're not supposed to. There's annual reporting required to monitor to make sure that there aren't any demographic disparities in how we're enforcing the law, and that we're going to post all of this by August 1st, which is the deadline. It'll be on the website, it'll be translatable, and that's all requirements of the state law. So in looking over some potential challenges to the new policy and its implementation, how do we ensure that enforcement is going to be consistent? What will be accountability measures? Do we need more staffing? Do we need a written sign-off? Looking at these 4 questions around enforcement, it is important that we clearly communicate what the guidelines are and that we support our staff in enforcing those. And when I talk about staff, I mean teachers, monitors, TAs, one-to-ones, administrators, etc. Staff are expected to enforce the rules as they enforce any other rules listed in the student handbook or in the code of conduct. If students don't follow the rules, as in every other case, there are disciplinary consequences. Teachers are primarily responsible for enforcing the lack of use of phones, the absence of phones in the classroom. All staff, including monitors, will enforce the halls and other areas. I believe that current staffing is sufficient. That is for indoor enforcement. While the law states that this extends to all school grounds, my feeling on this is that the grounds not enclosed by the envelope of the school, so I would not include Ingalls Field in this, because I do think Ingalls Field is able to be monitored. This does not include the courtyard breezeway area. Again, these are areas that are monitored by adults, but this would include, for example, the area in front of the front doors of the high school. And there's a couple of reasons for that. It is, while we do have perimeter patrols throughout the school day by monitors, I think continuous perimeter monitoring of students using the phone near the parking lots, et cetera, other areas, is not a good deployment of our staff. I also think it could lead to students going just a little bit off the property to use their phones, as is the case in, for example, workplaces back when everybody smoked. You said you can't smoke within 100 yards, so you go like 101 yards away to smoke. In our case, particularly, in the high school, Colonial Avenue is very busy. The idea of students crossing the street to go use their phones, I think, is causing a safety problem. So I think that's a situation in which enforcement, I think, would not be particularly constructive, but certainly within the school building from bell to bell and in the areas enclosed by the building. That we would particularly for this year, as this is something new, and I think for the near future, we would have a specific sign-off by students and parents on what the expectations are around phones, just as we have them sign off on their understanding of the student handbook and the acceptable use policy for technology. Looking at practical logistics and infrastructure, where are we going to store phones? How does the open campus affect this? Should we pilot pouches? How will we handle the fields attached to school property, which I talked about a little bit. My proposal for phone storage is student lockers. We have lockers for all but 40 of our high school students. Most students are not storing backpacks and coats and books in their lockers. They are empty in many cases, particularly as students get older. Perfect place to use as storage. The other advantage is that they are spaced out, and I'll talk a little bit of that when I talk about our physical plan. Students, in terms of the open campus, we are not set up with one door for enter and egress. We have two. One of them is essentially under a stairwell. That's our Franklin Avenue entrance. The other is a very small, while historically beautiful, very small lobby. We are not set up infrastructure-wise to have storage for 900 phones existing in either of those locations, even if we knew which one students were using. And in addition, it would be very impractical, and I might argue unsafe, to try to have 900 students either locking up their phones or retrieving their phones simultaneously in areas that are smaller than the area in which the board is sitting right now. So the expectation would be, if a student is leaving the building for lunch or a free period, if they're a 10th, 11th, or 12th grader, they are allowed to go to their locker to retrieve their phone. They then put it in their pocket. They're not using it in the hallway, walking from that locker to outside the building. Once they're outside the building, they do what they have to do. Phone pouches are a possibility, probably not necessary, and I would argue challenging given the design of our open campus. Again, pouches like yonder pouches are magnetized. There is a proprietary magnet that opens the phone pouches. This would have to be performed at the entrance/exits by security staff. While staff is doing that, I think you can picture any kind of a situation where you need to do a security check, getting in or out of a building, whether it's getting into court and going through metal detectors, or another analogy from a school setting, because we've never had metal detectors here, is during COVID we did temperature checks at our entrances. It is something that for any extended period of time on a daily basis is impractical and very time consuming. So to have a situation where it's taking us 20 minutes, 25 minutes to get 900 students into the building or out of the building when time is of the essence, when we already struggle to make sure that all of our students are in their first period classes at 8:15 so that they're not missing instruction, I think that would be highly problematic given our infrastructure, our campus, and the fact that it's an open campus, so you may have students doing this 2, 3, 4 times a day. As I mentioned, while the law dictates students not use their phone on school property, it would be very difficult to patrol outside of the front of the building, side of the building, parking lots, etc. Looking at emergency procedures for a moment, some questions around if there's an emergency evacuation, are students going to run to their lockers to get their phones? Will we integrate leaving phones behind into regular drill practice? And how will emergency communications reach students? And I would add to emergency communications, we do use phones for other communications to students, particularly in athletics. So we have Sports U and some other applications where students will get, this is when the bus is leaving, this is when practice is, this is when our game is, etc. In terms of evacuations, we do a lot of drills. In the course of a year, we're required to do 8 evacuation drills in each school each year, and our students, by the time they get to high school, have been doing this every year since they're in kindergarten. Students don't go anywhere in an evacuation drill. They stay together, they follow their teacher. There is no way that they would think that they can split up in a million directions and go to their lockers. They are highly regimented, and in addition, we treat any misbehavior during a safety drill and that would include just not following the direct instructions of the teacher as a serious infraction. Students would at the very least get in-school suspension for any kind of nonsense during a drill, which really does not happen. So if there was an emergency evacuation, the phones would be in student lockers, assuming that they had put them there as they were supposed to. At the point where that evacuation was done, it was safe to return to the building. If that had happened after the school day, we would make sure that students knew they could come back and retrieve their phones that afternoon. During the drill, however, they're not going to have them. Or during an actual evacuation, they're not going to have them. In terms of any emergency communications to students, they're going to get them outside the school day when they need them. So if the building's closed, they're not here, they're home, they have their phones. If we send out an alert over the phones, they're going to get it. We use email as well. In terms of other alerts throughout the school day, students are going to get that information at 2:51 when they leave their 9th period class. So, yep, there's going to be a little bit of a information dump that happens. It's the same thing if, I've been in a meeting for 3 hours and I come back to my office and there's 10 phone messages waiting. I'm going to have to get all those messages, and students will experience a little bit of that, like, all right, this is when my practice is. Mom wants me to pick up my younger brother. I have to do this. My friends want me to meet. Okay, now I know what's going on this afternoon. It's not going to be happening throughout the school day. Academics and technology integration. What is the process for handling website whitelisting requests so that students and teachers can access blocked sites? How will we streamline technology requests so the teachers won't say, oh, just use your phone, I can't wait? And then a question around staff modeling device restriction. So will staff members have to follow these same rules? So looking at these questions, there is a process in place for students to, for teachers to request access to block sites. Students do not have the ability to do this. This is through the Lyric service desk. It goes quite quickly, and it's actually been streamlined further because Mr. Sabalos has changed things around, so it's an even quicker process moving forward. That being said, there is a little bit of a process. It doesn't happen instantly. There isn't somebody waiting at a switchboard. Okay, great, this site is unblocked. So teachers need to plan ahead in terms of what websites they and their students are going to need to access. In terms of teachers and phones, we obviously want to think that folks are always, and not just teachers, folks at every level of staff are attentive to their duties. They're not using their phones for non-work related tasks. We do, as a district, currently use cell phones to communicate with teachers. Whether it is, can you do a coverage period 5, whether it's a district level communication about an emergency, whether it's I'm looking for this particular student, are they in class right now, etc. So just because a staff member is using their phone doesn't mean they're doing something that's off task and that they're not supposed to do. That being said, as in any other situation, if a staff member is not doing their job appropriately, that's something that we talk to them about and rectify. And of course, in their use of technology, we want staff to be modeling responsible behavior for their students. Some questions around student special needs and equity. Will there be anticipated increases in IEP or 504 accommodation requests for cell phones? What criteria will ensure equity? And then how do we address the needs of students who are relying upon their phones to cope with situations during their school day, for lack of a better word? So some answers around these. In our CSE meetings, in our 504 meetings, we strive to secure the learning modifications that students need to participate in school, which in most cases I do not see as requiring or including access to cell phones. In terms of an IEP and students needing assistive technology, they also have a district-issued Chromebook that does lots and lots of the same things that phones do. In terms of a 504 plan, we will and have had students that use phones for medical monitoring, for diabetes, for example. But if there are other needs, I think the question would be, is a cell phone that is a Swiss Army knife that does a million different things necessary to fulfill that need, or could another non-internet connected digital device be used? So for example, we have students that use music to tune things out, to focus, et cetera, while they're working. We can invest in very inexpensive MP3 players. Students can download the music they need onto those, and they can have that, and all it does is play music, and they can use that when they need to use it. They don't need to also do all of the other things that phones do, including social media and all the things that we're worried about. There is the question around, shouldn't students have the opportunity, I must have missed a bullet point, but I answer it anyway. While students can still use their phones as a means of social connection outside the school day, right? And the internet has shown itself to be a useful means of social connection among teens. We particularly saw this in the pandemic, and we saw good things and we saw bad things. And as parents, we said, boy, I feel terrible that my kid is on the computer so much, but this is their only connection to their friends right now, so what do I do? For some kids, this is an important means, but again, we're not forbidding them from using the internet for 24 hours a day. We're not letting them use the internet while they're here. Here is the time that they can practice their face-to-face communication and connections, and they can use the phones when they're not here. In the same way that, any of you have had kids who go to camp, and you have camps that completely forbid using phones at all, contacting your parents in any way except for writing letters, all of these things, and kids survive. And that kind of digital detox can be very healthy, I think, even for kids that, are really into their computers. And, my three who are still at home love all their devices. They're going to camp, and for the time they're at camp, they just don't have them. They're at home. They'll be okay. What role should schools play in teaching digital self-regulation and real-world phone management skills? And this goes back to something that the students were saying back on the committee. How are we preparing students to be responsible cell phone users? And then what are the communication plans for family and students? So to this I say, this is a really important skill. The law does not give us the option of letting students practice the skill while it's during the school day, so it's just kind of a moot point. This is something students want too. How am I going to be prepared for college when I'm going to have my phone, and to be prepared to know when to use it, not use it? I hear you. There is a state law. We don't have the option for them to practice that bell to bell. That being said, we still have a responsibility to teach students digital literacy, to teach students responsible use of technology, and this work needs to continue. And sometimes can happen asynchronously. I was thinking back to way before cell phones were a thing. I was teaching a media class, and at the time we worried, silly folks that we were, about television addiction. The students were addicted to watching too many hours of TV. So I had a project in which students needed to detox off their televisions and write about it and journal and et cetera. So we can still encourage students to use their phones responsibly, even if it's not happening in real time while they're here. In terms of communication plans, I'm going to talk about that a little bit when we get into the concrete plans. I think that really good communication with parents, students, is very, very important. Needs to happen a number of times, needs to happen really clearly. So talking about storage for a minute, because the law mentioned storage many times. One of the storage options that schools are using are Yonder pouches. This is a picture of a Yonder pouch and the device that demagnetizes it. If you haven't seen one before, students actually keep their phones with them. If you've ever had this experience, if you went to the theater or to a concert that used these, you keep your phone, but you can't access it because it's locked, unless you buy a magnet for about $6 or $7 on Amazon, in which case you can just sort of wear it around your lanyard and use it to disconnect the Yonder pouch from your phone when you want to. Yonder pouches are rather expensive. It's a lease, it's not a buy. It's about $25 or more per student per year. So they're making some big money on lending you a not super high-tech expensive device, and it's not my money per se. I don't live in the district, but if I think about ways that we could deploy that money there are other ways that I would love to see it be used. There are similar systems available for purchase that do the same thing, but due to the campus and the locking, unlocking, I do still think that there's some problems with that. There are also dedicated phone lockers. So this is a possibility, particularly if we're looking for stopgap, because we are short at both the high school and the middle school by a little bit in terms of how many lockers there are. Tons of phone lockers available. I know it's a silly statistic, but they essentially range in price from $5 per phone to $100 per phone. So $5 would look like the one on the bottom. They're plastic, they're keyed locked. You have about 40 of them. You can buy it for $200-something on Amazon. The $100 version is, it's metal, it's impenetrable, it also charges, they're beautiful, etc. Okay? What I like about these, particularly as a stopgap, is the density factor is not super great, particularly if you have something that looks like what's on the top where it's kind of spread out. You're not trying to cram hundreds of students in one small area. Picture like an apartment building, like if everybody in the apartment building wanted to get their mail at the same time, that would be problematic, right? Or everybody at the post office is trying to get into their post office boxes. So you can spread it out, have it in some different locations. We do have wall space. The one factor, and this impacts the price, is how do students open and close them. A lot of these are key-based. Kids lose keys. The ones that are not key-based are padlocked. Padlocks with keys, again, students lose keys. So I would suggest something that was padlocked with combinations on the padlocks, you know, buttons, etc. And then, of course, we have our lockers. We have 850 lockers for 890 students. If we're able to get 40 more lockers, we would be covered. The way that things work now, if anyone's asking, like, well, how do we not have enough lockers for students? Our population has grown. The way that things work currently is that seniors, unless you're in science research, you don't get a locker unless you ask for one. And most seniors don't want one. In fact, most sophomores and juniors are not using their lockers either. Kids carry their stuff around with them. Lockers are free. And so if you want to pilot something else, whether it's phone lockers or pouches or what have you, we could use the small amount of overflow student to pilot that, if anyone feels very strongly about that. So I get a lot of emails from other principals, and I'm not naming any names, but these are just some quotes in terms of, you know, these emails come out. And listen, I always want Pelham to feel very good about itself, because I feel very good about Pelham, because I think you're much more responsible and on top of things as a board and as a district than some other districts are, because we'll be 6 months into planning and meetings and committees, and then I'll get these emails like, have you guys thought about what you're going to do with this phone thing we have to put out in August? I said, yeah, it's all I've been doing all year. Not all I've been doing, but doing a lot of it all year. So some districts are saying they're going to let kids carry their phones, that this is storage. It's not storage.
And not in a pouch.
Right. Just in their pocket or in their backpack, that's their storage. I've heard that from a few districts. That they're going to do what we did this year, which is the wall pouches in the classroom. Again, it's not storage. That we will not address use in hallways or the cafeteria. That we're just going to sort of turn a blind eye and not penalize students for that. Folks talking about, well, maybe we'll use a pouch by the time we get to the 5th infraction, or we'll make them keep them in their lockers if they're a chronic offender, make parents pick up the phone. I mean, this is something we've been doing for forever. Students use their regular lockers. Well, that sounds like what I'm talking about. Some districts saying, nope, we're going to go with yonder pouches. So it's all over the place. I think this will start to coalesce as we get closer to August, as we get through the next school year. But, you know, I'd say that what we're proposing in terms of the range of what's been communicated to me, and I'm sure I'll hear a lot at my first, you know, Southern Westchester Principals Association meeting in September about this, we're on the more conservative end in terms of what we're proposing. So, in short, we need to comply with New York State law, but we need to establish processes that are not going to interfere with building operations and are not going to take away from instructional time. Communication with parents needs to be extremely clear regarding what's the policy, how are we enforcing it, and that there's going to be parental sign-off on all of this so that you've read it and you understand what it means. I don't mean you, obviously parents as well. How are parents going to communicate with students? What are the channels? At this point, we're not talking about anything particularly fancy. This is kind of going back to the 90s, early 2000s, and weaning some folks over the degree of contact that they have. That if you really need to get in touch with your child, or they need to get in touch with you, we have phone in the main office. They have school counselors that have phones. So we have phones available to them to use. Nobody's stopping them from using those phones. You need to get a message to your child, contacting, for example, Ms. Mann in the office. I need to get this message to my child or the counselor, or to me for that matter. But there's not, like, I'm not proposing a special app that you're going to use and then it's going to go to their email or something like that. I don't think that's going to be necessary. I think what's going to happen is that we're just going to get used to not having that constant communication available. I think there are going to be kids that's going to be harder for than others. I think there's going to be parents that's going to be harder for than others. And I think in those cases, we will accommodate, and they may be coming and using the phone more often. But I'd rather have an upset child in the counseling office using a phone in their counselor's office crying about a test grade that didn't go well, and we know where they are and we can help them, as opposed to what my experience has been the past 7 years or so, particularly in the middle school, which is a student is in a bathroom somewhere, and I'm hearing from a parent, my child is crying, I'm not sure where they are, but they're calling me, and they're hiding in a bathroom stall, and we're not sure which bathroom, and now it's an APB. So I'd much rather have that be out in the open. We will also be communicating regarding emergency procedures, because there is concern around this phone has become a lifeline for folks, that if there's an emergency going on, I can ask my child immediately what's going on. I'm not going to get into that in great depth tonight, unless you have questions around it. But in short, it really is much safer in the vast majority of cases for you to allow that communication to be happening from the school and to have the child focusing on following instructions of the adults who are in front of them while that emergency is happening. That being said, I'm not promising that every single question is answered and every single situation is solved out of the gate. So we're going to continue to collect data and stakeholder input throughout the implementation of the process so that we can refine the policy if need be, or just our procedures around enforcement of the policy as need be, because the policy really can't change very much unless the law changes. So, our plan. Before the end of the month, that we will be communicating on a building level what the new phone policy is. Obviously, the policy needs to be passed first. So if the policy hasn't been passed, what the anticipated policy will be, and what our plan is moving forward for the next school year, and then follow it up again with a very similar communication in August, because folks don't always read what you send them the first time around. Over the summer, when we do our revisions to the student handbook will be revised to reflect what the new board policy is around the use of internet-enabled devices, and then we will have a sign-off that happens in September. At the beginning of the school year, at our opening assemblies that we have with each grade of students, and as well as the first faculty meeting that we have with teachers, we're going to talk about this. We're going to lay it all out there, and then anyone who's not participating in those, we would have separate briefings with. So, for example, safety monitors don't participate in faculty meetings, so we have specific meetings with them to talk about their role. Students will be expected to keep their phones in their lockers throughout the school day, to not use them in any areas within the school building. If we see a student's phone in their hand during the school day, they are in violation of the policy. It's supposed to be in their locker. And this has been the case in the middle school for many years now. So it's really nothing new, particularly for the students coming up from 8 to 9. If students violate the policy, there are consequences, obviously not including suspension unless this is happening along with another infraction, but the types of things we do, we confiscate the phone they get at the end of the day, we give them a warning, second time such and such is going to happen, call the parent, say, listen, kid has a phone infraction, please talk to them about that. Assigning detention, could be during lunch, could be after school. Sometimes we make the parent pick up the phone. A lot of times that's really inconvenient for parents. We don't want to inconvenience the parents unnecessarily, so sometimes we make a deal with the student around that. Some students, and this is the case now, they have to come in the morning and hand in their phone to Dr. Titone, and she has it. And that may happen for a week, a month, the rest of the school year, if they really keep doing it. I will say that if you look at phone infractions, and I talked to Dr. Titone about this earlier, comparing last year to this year, a significant decrease in the number of phone infractions. The other thing, which I think is much more telling, is looking at first versus second versus third offenses. And what it tends to look like is you have 65 first offenders, 14 of those do it a second time, 4 of them do it a third time, which is what you want to look at in terms of quantitative data, that the enforcement is working, students are getting the message and saying, I guess I really can't use my phone. I think we need to have a committee again. We'll call this the Internet-Enabled Device Committee. We'll meet similarly to last year, get all the stakeholders involved, and we're going to discuss how is the implementation going, what are the challenges, what could we refine, what could we do better, and if you all want me to come back 12 months from now and give a repeat performance, I can let you know how things are being working out. So in short, the goal of all of this, certainly on my end, I think on yours as well, is to support students' emotional well-being, their academic focus, and preparedness for their futures. Community input has been essential. I think it's been really important at every step of the process, not just on the committee, but through the surveys and lots of informal conversations I've had with folks and emails I've received and calls, et cetera. This has been really important, and we're committed to thoughtful, equitable implementation of these policies next year. So thank you for entertaining. It was hopefully not that long a presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have. How did I do?
Open it up to the board.
So I said 10:30 earlier. It's only 10:15. So.
I saw Mr. Treves taking lots of notes.
Yeah.
So
No, I honestly can't. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I will confess that I sort of came to this meeting ready to get into it because I feel strongly about this. I read The Anxious Generation cover to cover. I know it. The book has some detractors, and there are some question marks about some of the data in the book. But in my opinion, even if it's only half true, we have a major problem on our hands. And just as a parent, as a member of the community, I see a lot of these problems just with my own eyes. The eye test tells you that we have a problem on our hands. And I like I say, I was sort of anticipating, poking here and there. I think you've done an admirable job at, looking around the corners and anticipating some of the operational complexities here. I don't have a lot to add. I don't have a lot to ask. I mean, I would encourage, and you said this, but I would just kind of say it again. I would encourage us, everyone, all of us, because we're all stakeholders in this, not just you, to keep an open mind about options as we learn and as we experiment. I don't think we should. I would encourage you to. I would encourage you to not use potential cost as a reason not to try something. We find money frequently. We raise money frequently to support use cases that improve the lives of our students. In many cases, in significantly smaller numbers of students than what we're talking about here. And we just kind of find the money and we make it happen when it's important enough. So if you see or if you hear of a solution that you think could be better than the ones that you are rolling out, I would very much encourage us to test, to optimize, to keep an open mind. That's really it. I mean, I think the whitelisting of websites is going to be a challenge, but like everything, will collectively, we will get better at it as a kind of technology process going forward. But I think, John, you're going to get in front of that, and BOCES has, I hope is supportive. I think that's going to be a major issue. But other than that, I wish you Godspeed in doing this. I think our kids our students are going to be happier. I really do believe that. A year from now and 2 years from now. I think this is great. This is going to be very beneficial for the student body. I think I'm sure it's going to be frustrating for the people who actually have to do the work on the ground. And I hope you just, encourage them to stay the course and stick with it and be disciplined. And I think we will be surprised in a good way by the results. So thank you.
Thank you.
Similar to what Will said, I just wanted to say a lot of work has gone in the last year, and I'm glad that last year the board did take a stand, voted, and as administrator, you took the challenge forward. Because I feel like as a district, we're in a much better place than maybe some of our, colleague districts in Westchester and Long Island. So thank you for doing all the hard work. As you pivot, when the law actually became in effect, I want us to also be open to pivoting. I understand the proposal now is to use lockers, but in case that doesn't work, I want us to be open-minded and able to pivot to the next option. I don't have stock in Yonder, and I wish another situation came about. Maybe, I don't know, their intellectual property, becomes available somewhere else or something that we could use. But I myself have used Yonder just because I love the theater and I'm always going somewhere. And the last time I used a Yonder pouch was for Othello. And I just looked it up, and it was, they fill the house every day, 1,443 seats a night, 8 shows a week. And when I went, it literally took me the same amount of time to get in and get out as I would any other theater and any other show. There was absolutely nothing major. There was no log and getting in or out of that theater. So when you implement some of these things, they're quick and easy because they have this logistics down. So just, if we have to pivot, we have to be aware. And like Will said, it shouldn't be a cost-benefit analysis, because the benefit of not having the kids run to a locker every 5 seconds when they need to get out, if we have some way of putting a pouch by the door. And again, logistically, I don't know how it will work, but we just have to be aware that if the locker situation doesn't work, we have to be open to go with another option. I don't think storage in the person is going to work. It doesn't work for me, right? So I'm assuming it's probably not going to work for most teenagers. Also, I love the middle school, and I think they do such a great job at keeping those kids not to use their cell phone. But there's a big difference between 11-year-olds to 13-year-olds than 14 to 18-year-olds. And I see that difference in my own household, having 2 14-year-olds and a 12-year-old. There's a huge difference. So I don't think you're going to have as many compliant people in the high school as you do in the middle school, because I think the younger the kids are in the middle school, the more able they are to comply. And maybe Miss Sabia, they're just so afraid of you. And that's a good thing. Trust me, that's a good thing. Than they might be when they're older. So again, I just want us to be open to, we're going to try different things, and it's not a failure if we have to somehow pivot in the middle of the school year.
Thank you. And the nice thing about us not being alone in this is we will have lots of other districts trying lots of things. So I've been a building administrator for, I don't know, a long time. I don't want to think about how long. And we tend to think in terms of worst case scenarios because we have to. We're always worried about, things getting chaotic. If we can, find local schools that decide, you know what, we're going all yonder, and I can then come in and observe what does arrival look like, what does dismissal look like, how does that work with an open campus? And as you said, maybe I'm over anticipating problems that aren't the case. I'd be very happy to do that. I want to learn more. If you asked me 12 months ago, I think I said at one of the meetings around cell phones that, pouches was the way to go. So that's been sort of the journey that I've been on in thinking about it. But, maybe I need to see more of this firsthand to have a more accurate perspective.
Yeah, just on the I don't have a sort of vested interest in pouches either, but I do take an interest in this sort of general subject matter. And, I have done a bit of, I've looked on the internet for, there are videos available of what a pouch-based solution looks like in a school environment, kind of in the wild. And look, hard to believe anything you read on the internet or see on the internet, but I've seen a number of videos that from schools elsewhere that and it does look surprisingly normal and not chaotic, and just, like anything, once the kids have had a few reps at doing it, it just becomes part of their muscle memory. So look, like that could be an optimization down the road, but from what I've seen, it's plausible. It's a plausible solution.
Great, thank you.
I have a practical question, and first, thank you for all the work that you and the committee have put into this, because I know this has been a hot topic, and then with Governor Hochul's new law that threw not a wrench into things, but definitely, clearly you needed to pivot a little bit. When it comes to the lockers, do you envision adding the regular lockers so that there are 40 more or whatever that gap is? Or are you thinking of those smaller lockers, putting those somewhere and having a mix of what the students are using?
So right now we're looking into adding more regular lockers.
Okay.
And should for one reason or another that not be practical, then we would pivot to another storage, which could be piloting pouches,
Yeah.
or piloting dedicated phone lockers for a smaller group of students, whether it's a grade or part of a grade or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah, and I think I do agree with everyone in that this will be a process, right? Like, so in the coming year, you'll make a choice about, let's say it's the lockers, and there's room to add 40 more of the regular lockers, and we learn, or you learn that, well, here are the challenges with that, and we really have to look at pouches, for example. I don't like the idea of leasing something and that recurring cost. It just feels wrong. But I think this is going to be something that I like the fact that you want to have a continued committee looking at this. Because I think there are things that none of us are thinking about, right? We can't anticipate what all of this is, and I do think there's going to be not a learning curve, but sort of an unlearning for parents around being able to reach their students whenever they want to. I think that a good majority would probably welcome not having the ability to receive texts requesting random things throughout the day. But I think that, like with everything, we've developed a habit. I mean, if I look around, like, we all have our phones out right now, and they're all upside down because that's how we decide that it's okay to have them out. But I think that just each year we're probably going to be learning more and more, and there's going to be more data out, like you said, like with the anxious generation. There's data in there that's not everyone buys, right? And like you said, well, even if half of it is true, this is worth it, using your words. But I think we're going to continue to learn what the impact is. And I think one thing that came to mind, because I didn't know what to expect tonight, and I don't want to bring up bond because I know we spend so much time on the bond. But I think about the high school and the fact that we didn't, as a community, vote for that space, that community space for students. And so I just want to make sure that we're thinking about for those students that are reliant on the phones, whether for good, I don't want to say for good reason or not, but are reliant on the phones to cope, that we are thinking about creatively, what are we doing to address those mental health needs? So the example you gave, I thought, was a really good one, right? So if a student is crying over a grade and we don't know where they are, but you're getting a phone call and now you have to search every bathroom in the building, if instead they're at either a guidance counselor's office or they're with a trusted adult, and that might be a teacher, that might be a monitor, then that feels like connection to me, right? And so I do wish we voted as a community for that space, because I think that helps with connection. But on a smaller scale, if we teach our students that when there's something that's stressing them out, there's something that's bothering them, maybe they're not looking to their phone, they're trying to find someone who can help them. The more we get that message across, I think that ties into so much of what we've been talking about. It ties into our strategic plan. It just ties into, the mental health challenges that we're seeing. So those are just some of my thoughts.
Thank you. And I would add that sometimes the coping strategy is a Band-Aid but doesn't really help.
Right.
So,
And I totally agree. And I also, I feel like there's a lot of pressure being put on schools to manage a situation that is much larger than our schools. The situation with our phones and social media, it goes way beyond schools, but year after year, more and more is being put on schools to fix problems that either adults have created, corporations have created, or whoever. It doesn't really matter. And I'm just very cognizant of the pressure that teachers are under they don't just teach anymore, right? Like, it's not just teaching a subject. They're responsible for so much more throughout the day because of the pressures that the students experience. And so any way that we can make things easier for teachers, and I know that my understanding is when there is a rule in place, a policy in place, it is much easier for a teacher, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but for a teacher to feel, and I'm not talking about the support that they would receive from administration, but just to say, sorry, the policy is this, or the law is this. That has to, I would imagine, help teachers be able to go back to teaching, or at least, not have to spend that time being in a tug of war with, please put your phone away, please put your phone away. Yeah. So, for me, last year when we were at this point in voting, my biggest thing was I wanted the high school to have the time to come up with a plan and not be rushed into it. And so, I really do appreciate the work. And there are small things like, all the food order, like Uber Eats and whatnot. Well, you bring a sandwich.
Yeah, you can always order ahead of time, too.
Yeah,
you could place your order for lunch tonight.
Yeah, I believe then, and I still believe with some of the things that you've identified, there are solutions to them, and there are things that we haven't identified yet that will come up once we implement the rules. And so I just wanted to make sure you had the time to really investigate, and Governor Hochul then just forced it.
I'm sure other people want to say something, but can I just pick up on something you said before I forget, which was, I think this is all very positive and good. To the extent there's sort of one nagging kind of concern in the back of my mind, it's that, a year ago-ish, we agreed that calculator holders were going to be the solution, the interim solution. And I think that was very difficult for teachers. And the reason why I think that is because, in the data that you shared earlier in the year and perhaps tonight, I think that sort of generally folks agree that the implementation of the calculator holders was very inconsistent, or somewhat inconsistent, and I put myself in the shoes of a teacher, and it's got to be tough, it's got to be really difficult. And so, to the extent I have one sort of nagging concern that worries me, and I'd just like to hear your sort of any commentary on this. What do you think is going to kind of, what is going to make this enforceable in a way that we struggled to enforce calculator holders? Does that make sense?
So what I would say is, while the use of the calculator holders was inconsistent, it still achieved its stated purpose. So by that I mean, you might have a classroom where there are 20 phones in the calculator holder. You might go to a classroom where there are 6, but you didn't see the students with their phones in their hands because the whole process normalized that phones need to be out of sight. So it wasn't that students were not putting their phones in the calculator holders and then using them. They were not using them because they didn't want to have to put them in the calculator holders. So, I know there is data around, that a phone is a distraction, even if it's on somebody's person, even if they're not using it. That hasn't necessarily been my personal experience, if it's not buzzing or beeping and I'm wondering what it is, or if it's not linking to my watch or whatever. But I will say that students really, it just became something that wasn't done to have your phone out. Now, they use them in the hallways, but they weren't using them in the classroom. So say that, what is going to happen with this realistically is whether or not every student keeps their phone in their locker, or whether or not students have an ability through a device to open up a Yonder pouch if they want to. They're not going to have their phones out because phones being out has become something that is forbidden and is just sort of not done. So they're going to sneak it. And there's other issues around that. Are kids going to be going to the bathroom and trying to look at their phones? But, these are things that we can deal with. But, I think the challenge is a hallway during passing. It's a lot of students on the move to enforce. So it's going to be more like, you're getting a speeding ticket on the Hutchinson River Parkway. Sometimes there's a police officer there, sometimes there's not. The knowledge that that might happen is going to be a deterrent. We're not going to be able to get every single kid, but, it'll be sweeps. In terms of the classrooms, I think we're going to be fine. And what worries me the most, to be honest with you, is communicating with parents that really have difficulty with their child not having their phone because they really want their child to have their phone. And I think those are the most challenging conversations. I think the kids will get it. I think that there's got to be a lot of really good conversations with parents, and we may have to give the opportunity for some kind of forums to share concerns publicly to get some of that off their chests, because I don't think it's as simple as just flipping a switch.
I hear, and I'm sure you'll catch some, friction from parents. I think I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues that to the extent that happens, we got your back and we support you in this. Am I right?
Yes.
So
thank you.
I just know that as you're getting some heat from frustrated parents.
Appreciate that.
And there's also the law. So.
There's also the law.
Yeah, the law is behind you.
I know it's late, so I just want to echo my fellow board members on everything they said, so I won't be repetitive, but it was very thoughtfully done. It looks like you're anticipating a lot. when we think about this, to your point, it's going to be a big change for folks, right? I mean, the good news is the law is on our side, right? So like it is what it is. When you think about the pilots and like lessons learned, and I imagine there'll be a lot, do you think of this year as like, this next year as like final decisions will be made on the pouches? And do you know, like, it's like a year of transition? Like, how are you thinking about, there'll be iterations of everything evolving, but as far as like this as like the pilot, like, do you see really locking in after 1 year of sort of what has worked, what isn't working, what are or other, districts doing?
I think that's reasonable. I think that just to a point that was made earlier, there may be unanticipated solutions that, we haven't even thought of yet that have the possibility of rearing their head. But, I think we need to go in, can't be wishy-washy.
That's
you
it,
know,
yeah.
and I'm a rule follower. That's probably why I'm a high school principal. I'm not about just everybody do whatever you want. That's so not my personality. So I think we need to come in very firm with these are the rules now.
Yes.
And the what is going to stay the same. I think the how can adjust, but I don't think we have a lot of room for it to adjust much because I think we need to be very consistent. And I think if we come around to next year and say, you know what, we're gonna tweak this a little bit. We're not changing the what, we're going to change the how a little bit. I think that's fine, but I think we have to be very firm about this is the law, these are the rules, and everybody has to abide by it.
Thank you. I fully support that. And yes, as Will said, got your back on that one.
Thank you.
Quick question, Dr. Champ, with, I know we've been focused on the high school, and the middle school has its rules in place already, but I know that elementary school kids wear smartwatches, and some of them have phones. And so what thoughts are there, or have you given any thought yet as to, like, do they know, well, they obviously know what the law, that this law has been passed, but they're going to have to do something as well, right? Because this is K to 12.
Yeah, and I know the elementary principals are aware of it and are supportive of the law. I think and I know Ms. Sabia, we were talking just at our meeting yesterday as we were preparing for tonight. The watches in particular are going to be one of the biggest battles with elementary and middle school parents because they buy them as an alternate to the phone.
Right, exactly.
And
So they're going to
walking.
have to go away. They're going to have to be stored
Yeah.
K-12.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think just as a recent K through 5er, I think the big thing is the kids are starting to walk to school too, right? So it's like once they get to school, then they come off.
Right.
So that concern is alleviated because you just want to make sure you're tracking your child that they get there safely. So I can't,
And a nice thing is, and not that it's any of my business because I don't work in the elementary schools, but when you have a classroom-based environment, you can kind of split that work up among the teachers. So your second grade teacher is, all right, collecting everybody's watch. It goes into the watch box.
Yep.
And then you all get them back, the few
the
minutes
day.
before dismissal so that you have them so your parents can follow you on their phone and see exactly.
there's a delay.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Sean, can you repeat that at the mic?
So Dr. Titone was saying we may see air tags being used for kids.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you want to say something?
You can go first.
Okay.
I was just going to say thank you.
Thanks, Sean, for that presentation. I really enjoyed hearing about your the work the Digital Device Committee or the Internet-enabled, soon-to-be Internet-enabled Device Committee did, because what was missing for me last year was the data, and you definitely brought more of that to us. So last September, when we were thinking about this, I didn't feel like I had enough information to warrant saying we needed a more or the most restrictive policy because we had a handbook guideline in place that was made clear to us that wasn't very enforceable because it wasn't a board policy, which board policies are more enforceable than guidelines. And so for me, policy is informed by diverse perspectives grounded in lived experience and crafted pragmatically with the clarity that data provides. And so you've brought that to us today. So I feel like I have a more full perspective of what the high school, what the needs are at the high school in order to effectively implement a more comprehensive cell phone ban. This policy represents a significant shift in culture at the high school, it feels like. And that shift in culture is it's really hard. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight, and it is going to be something that everyone needs to buy into and be participants of, active participants of, students, teachers, parents, for success and for successful compliance, because this is now, this is bigger than just a school board policy or a district policy. This is the law. So we do need to make sure that we can comply, and this is important for the mental health of our students. So I think when I think about what storage means, I do think it's pragmatic to start with, or practical to start with, resources that we already have, because we unless we're hearing overwhelmingly that the only way to successfully successfully comply with this ban is pouches or special cell phone lockers, then using what we have seems like the right place to start, because I also don't think it's right to throw district money away on things that we're not sure is going to work while taking up more space or changing the way we're already doing. The cell phone policy is already changing a lot for our high school students. If we do pouches and then we have to change the way they enter and exit the building and all of that, I think that would be really overwhelming to enforce. It would be overwhelming for our students, and it might impact the implementation rollout or the success of that. So it's also important. We can put anything in, we can turn anything into a policy, right? Like, we can declare that anything now is required. But if we don't have the full picture of if we don't have the full picture of the situation or how that's going to impact the stakeholders involved, then we risk it being unsuccessful, and that's definitely not what we want to have happen. So we have to do this in a way that supports our students, our teachers, and the broader community. And so I think what you have laid out is a very practical starting point, and I like that the addition of the new renamed committee, Internet-Enabled Device Committee. It doesn't roll off the tongue as easily as Digital Device Committee did. To reevaluate how this is working, and because then we can pivot more easily to a different storage solution if that's what we need and if that's what makes the most sense for our community. I also like the sign off on the policy, so that everybody has acknowledged that they've read it and committed to being a part of this, because this policy won't work if parents and students and if everybody doesn't buy into this, it won't work. So I did like that was an element of, the new procedures going forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all of the work throughout the year on this. So the parents and the students, they won't be signing off on the policy, but will they be signing off on something that's in the code of conduct, or it will be a separate?
So by signing off on the student handbook, they're signing off on this anyway, but for this year, I think it'd be useful to have a separate form talking about, I will abide by, I understand the internet-enabled device policy and will abide, whatever it is, like a specific sign-off for that, just because, in trying to successfully communicate these things, sometimes you need to say things, 3 times, and the third time is what really gets it. So I think this year we have them sign off on the AUP, a lot of that overlaps in the student handbook, but not all of it.
Yeah.
We have the student handbook that is also going to talk about internet-enabled devices, but we're going to have a third thing too. In the same way that, for, kids who, are going to the prom next week, we have them sign off on something specific about their prom behavior. All of that is already included in the student handbook and the code of conduct, but it's just sort of reminding them, you are making a promise that you're going to follow the rules.
Right, but in the policy, and I'm trying to remember if it's not actually in the policy where the phones will be stored.
Right.
So that'll be outlined separately in the.
So the sign off would be very specific about, whatever we decide on. Let's say, my phone is going to be kept, in my locker from, 8:15 to 2:51 unless I'm leaving the building, et cetera. It'll lay out the rules in a way that's student-friendly.
Student-friendly, okay. Thank you.
I do have another question. In terms of just enforcement, did you anticipate needing more like monitors just to walk the hallways or, go to the bathrooms and check what's going on there? Like, is that something you've thought about? I'm sure there's been a conversation about what could this potentially be?
So I think we can look at what compliance looks like and enforcement looks like in the fall and make decisions around staffing. I think it would be a little bit premature to say, we need X number of additional monitors, in the building. The amount of staff we have dictates the extent to which it can be, really thoroughly enforced. I mean, to use my, speeding on the Hutch example, if you're, seeing a police car every half a mile, that's different than seeing one every 10 miles. In terms of the size of our school, we have myself, we have Dr. Titone, we have our teachers, we have our monitors, We're going to do absolutely the best we can. I think it becomes more a question of students understanding that being caught with my phone is a distinct possibility, having my phone confiscated is a distinct possibility, and you can do a lot with not a tremendous amount of staff. Mr. Brown, who was up here tonight talking about his retirement, when I was in the middle school, a lot of mornings he would do a sweep with a bucket or a box right before homeroom and collect 20 phones and deposit them in my office. That was one person. That was pretty effective for those 20 kids. Hopefully they weren't going to do it again. So I think it's, intelligent deployment of the staff that we have. And then if I feel like things really aren't working and we need additional support, then I would reach out and ask for that.
It is encouraging that enforcement data showed that infractions were down. And I liked how you laid that out, like the first infraction 65 and then the second level is maybe only 14, and then by the third it's much lower. And I think that's a really important data point, because if that's just from this last year where there was a little bit of trouble keeping consistency across the calculator pouches, then looking ahead to next year, if we are if New York State law has mandated even more regimented rules around where you're storing those phones, and now they're in a locker, hopefully we're seeing even less of that. And if there's discipline, which now we have to, the state's also mandating we have to make our discipline record or phone infractions or whatever public, right? That this actually, reporting something like this would actually be, I didn't love that about the law. I don't love that we're putting our discipline records on discipline is already public, right? We can look up Pelham discipline records if we wanted to, but I didn't love the idea of having specific phone discipline on the website. But I do like seeing this kind of, the enforcement and the impact on the God, words are hard right now. The positive impact that the enforcement is having. And so I would think that we would see even better numbers next year on this?
Sure. And, you know, in terms of the data, and obviously I don't know what it's going to look like in terms of, you know, what we follow, but I imagine, you know, it would be similar to the data that's collected in the school safety and the educational climate data that we have to report to the state each year. They're really looking for, is our enforcement hitting a particular demographic group more than others that would indicate an unfair application of the rules to one particular group of students. I don't think that's something that we ever have an issue with. So I would be very confident in sharing, you know, what those results would be.
Have you thought about any, and you may not have thought about this yet, or do you know if the state is thinking about collecting other data that shows the improvement in belonging, or?
They haven't indicated anything
Yeah.
in that regard
Yeah.
at this
I think they should. I think one of the problems is, you know, this is just one variable. And if
And
you
a
look, and
whole
I
bunch of things,
you know, I agree with Mr. Treves that a lot of what Jonathan Haidt wrote about in his book is, you know, really scary. The unfortunate thing is a lot of those negative impacts are happening just as much or more outside the school day than
Yeah.
during the school day. So when he talks about the negative impact of, you know, social media on, you know, girls, for example, or you know, students of all genders, they're not spending a tremendous amount of time crafting their social media persona in the school building. I mean, at least not here. That stuff is all going to still go on. All the
Yeah.
addictive algorithms that the companies are using are still going to go on. So it helps, but there's also that piece of, you know, parents enforcing students' cell phone and social media use, laws around what the companies are allowed to and not allowed to do, you know, age verification. So I really hope that on the state level, there's as much energy put into making all of those outcomes happen as there was for something that was really kind of low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
We can pass a law and tell the schools what to do. Okay, great.
What about
Pass a
everyone
law
else?
and tell all these other folks what to do too,
Yeah.
if we really want to help kids.
Sean, thank you so much.
Yes,
I really
thank you.
appreciate the work that you have done,
Thank you.
the entire
Thank you.
committee.
Thank you.
Thanks to Dr.
Thank you.
Titone. I know you've been a partner in this as well. Ms. Sabia sticking around for moral support.
God bless
And
you.
also knowing
Thank
this is
you.
going to have impacts for you too. So really well done. Well
Yeah.
done. Very thorough,
you.
and I
Thank you,
appreciate
folks.
Thank you.
the important
Thank you for all of your
conversation.
time
Good night.
and your pledge of
Thank you.
support.
I'll move up public comment. Would you, or do you like to make would you like to make a comment? No? Okay. Okay.
And can I offer to let the cabinet go
Of
home
course.
too?
Yes.
It's almost 11. So.
But wait, you have to do your reports. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Yeah, please, you guys, if please feel free to go. It's late. And I
Thank
know
you.
we've got early days tomorrow. So, thank you for everything
Yeah,
tonight.
thank you for.
Yeah,
Thank you, Trish. Thank you for
Yeah.
great emceeing on the tenure retirement.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Presentation.
That was
It was
fantastic.
Yeah.
Great
it was
night.
Wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Okay. So, actually, next is the superintendent's report, 4.4.
Congratulations to Sock and Buskin. They were mentioned earlier for their awards, so I'm not going to repeat that. Tonight was the Studio and Art exhibition downstairs. I don't know, I'm hoping a few of folks got to that on the way in, so congratulations to them.
Awesome.
Good. They do a lot of work to go into that. Thanks to Tracy, thanks to SEPTA, to the Colonial PTA, and everyone who really did an amazing ribbon cutting on Monday for the communication boards. It's a great effort, and we're really excited to have them. And it was a wonderful time despite the drizzle. So thank you for that. And I think I'm going to end there tonight.
Okay.
Everything else
you.
I had listed is already mentioned, and it's 11
Cliff
o'clock.
notes.
So.
All right. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to go to 6.1, right?
Yep.
I think that makes sense. Do I have a motion to approve the revised Pelham Schools Plan for the implementation of a new compact for learning? And this is this site-based
Yep.
We can talk about it. Do I have a motion to approve the revised Pelham Schools Plan for the implementation of a new compact for learning?
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Okay, so just so what this is our site-based plan for the district. It's something that came out of the Compact for Learning in the 90s. It's still on the books, although it's not terribly relevant anymore as far as regulation, yet it is still there, and it's something that we as a district have continued to practice. In particular, using our site-based teams for as our base hiring committees, as well as doing a lot of student school culture work. So what we wanted to do needed some clarification. We wanted to update it. It's supposed to be approved by the board. I think it's annually or biannually. It's been a few years.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So it's been at least, I think, 10 years since it's gone to the board. So we're bringing it to you tonight to get it refreshed and get back in the cycle of approving that.
Okay. Yeah, so it's not a policy, but it's
No.
more like
It's
a plan.
Yep, like a
It's a plan.
professional development plan, safety plan, variety of different plans that the board does approve on a regular basis, but that are not policies. They're just guides for implementing the mid-administrative implementation.
Yeah, and we did go over it in policy committee.
Yep.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on it? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? So that's updated for the first time in
The 90s.
Many,
in a
many
decade.
years.
In a decade. Okay.
Thank
We'll give that one to Sid too, as a
Yes.
check.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what he gets.
We'll count that.
We should give him more.
Yeah. Okay. We can move to 6.2, and I know we'll want to talk about this for a moment as well. We have a motion to approve the revised calendar for the 2025-2026 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Go.
So can I say something about the calendar?
Of course.
I know we've, as a board, received lots of letters, and I know there's been some concerns from some community members about the calendar. I do think the calendar for this year is set, and I plan to vote to approve it. I do think it's a work that could continue to evolve, so maybe next year it'll look different, but I think for this year, I was really pleased with some of the improvements that were made, some of the split between delayed opening, which we used to have when my kids were smaller. They used to have delayed opening, and the PTAs will step in and put programming together to enable parents to still drop off at the standard regular day hours. And they've ran great programs in the PTAs, which I'm sure they could step up and do again. And then we had, during the COVID years, we had the half-a-days. So I think now we have a combination of both, and I think that could work very well. I know we have this year in particular, we have a lot of holidays during the month of October, but those holidays are mandated by New York State. So again, the district did a lot of changes at the year end, which I appreciate because it allows, especially the elementary kids, to go to camp. So there's been a lot of changes, but a lot of what dictates our calendar is really based upon New York State, the holidays, when we could begin our school year, when we could end the school year. And then we have to fill in with some vacations. And while that may not work for everyone, I think it works for most. So while I think the calendar could probably still be worked on, I think every year we should take a look at it and refine it. I do think for this particular year coming up, I think it's good because it does have some of the concessions that we're giving to community groups that did have some concerns about it. So I plan to vote yes for it.
I also plan to vote for it, and I just want to say I understand that some families find the early releases or a delayed start to be disruptive. As Natalie said, that can be solved for by the rec programming that's in the mornings or in the afternoons, so that there is consistency during those times. One thing I also wanted to note is that you spoke to, or at least emailed with several of our peer districts with respect to the number of half-days or delayed starts, and we're right in the sort of ballpark of what I think the schools you talk to, you might talk to like 10 of them or a dozen
Yeah.
of them.
Yep.
It's between 8 and 14.
Yeah.
8 and 14. So we're not doing anything unusual. And then I just, want to say there's a lot of stakeholders with respect, well, in the school system in general, right? There's the teachers, the students, the families,
Right.
and the calendar is, it's an effort to balance all of the the interests in that. And like Natalie said, we're adhering to constraints, right? There's the number of instructional days that need to happen. There's state mandated holidays. There's Regents exam dates, and that all plays into, when school starts, when it ends, when we have off. And I will say that also, I feel like I'm repeating what Natalie's saying, but I want to say at the district that you have taken feedback and put it into what the calendar looks like now. So we have additional holidays, right, beyond the state mandated holidays. We have the longer holiday break because that is something that both families and I think the teachers wanted as well. We have the give back. I'm calling them the give back days at the end of the year now, and actually moving to this mix of delayed starts and early releases is based on feedback that you received, right, from families and I guess staff as well, from the survey. And I'm voting for it because it's in line. It incorporates feedback. It's in line with what other districts are doing. It's sort of respectful of the teacher's time for professional development, which is very important. I know, some of what was asked is to push professional development to Friday afternoons because that's more convenient, right? Say for families, and I agree, it probably is. Parents have more flexibility, right, with their work schedules on Fridays. Many families, but that's not the best time for teachers to be learning. So again, it's balancing what's best for everyone. And of course, I think we go through this every year. The calendar. I mean, now it'll be it's my third year going through the calendar with you, and I'm sure there'll be more feedback and more tweaking of the calendar next year. And so that's my speech on the calendar.
Thanks for laying that all out, Jackie.
What?
Thanks for laying all of that out, Jackie. That was
sure.
very comprehensive and clear with all of the benefits to our calendaring process and the perspectives that we hear and how we do the best job, how, Cheryl, you do the best job you can with your team to incorporate everything. And just the one thing I'd like to add, because I think it's often overlooked and maybe comes back at us sometimes, but a quick Google search, when I look at our one-page calendar, we have so much information on there. It's very dense and it's very colorful. And a quick Google search of other districts, their calendars are not as
they're like blank
filled, right? So we are very transparent in this process, which is why our community members here know so much about what we're doing and when. And I just think that it's important to say that out loud to maybe not remind people, but just I think it's important to say out loud that our calendar provides, even our one-pager, so much detail to the people who are looking at it, and not all districts do that.
And I got to give kudos to Valerie Miller, who gets Google-eyed every time we get to this time of year, because she is the one that has to craft every one of those little triangles. And so tremendous amount of labor in itself goes into that, but it's because we wanted to be so transparent with the community. So thank you.
Okay. And okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Okay. So the calendar for next year. Set. is set. Thank you. Let's see. We can move to 3.6. Do I have a motion to approve the Board of Education reorganization meeting date?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that date is, so put it on your calendar, Tuesday, July 15th, 2025.
Do we have a time?
That's not
No,
in
we
here.
usually start it a little bit earlier, something like 6 o'clock-ish.
Okay.
But we'll, now that it's adopted, we'll get that on there.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. So the motion carries. Let's see. Can't see right now. Let's see. So 6.4, do I have a motion to amend the 2024-2025 school district budget for the purchase and renovation of real property?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Do we want to just explain this?
This goes back to the approved purchase
Mhm.
of property that was approved by the voters. Working with our auditors, they shared with us that since this happens and the approval has happened in this fiscal year, we need to book it in this year. So that's why we're making the adjustment to this year's budget.
Okay. Any questions on that? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? So that carries. If we can move to 6.5, do I have a motion to approve SECRA Type 2 resolution?
So moved. Second.
Yes, and this is for a small project
Yes,
at Colonial.
renovation at Colonial to convert a portion of the back library office area for use as a speech classroom.
Mhm.
We've been using it as a classroom this year, but haven't been able to really kind of cordon it off the way that you would want.
Yeah.
So this would enable us to start that process. Engineered plans are being developed by the architect. They'll need to be approved by State Education Department, but this is part of that process for us.
Right,
Okay.
for state ed, they want to see a secret resolution.
Yeah. Right, and this has nothing to do with the bond project?
No.
Yep. Okay.
And this could happen as soon as, but not during school.
Oh, we hope to have the application into the state within the week for the design. We anticipate to probably try to complete that work in-house over the summer so that we've got a completed and enclosed office space.
Okay.
But again, it's just something where we're making kind of a change to that floor plan. So we want to make sure we go through the proper channels with the state building department.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposition, so the motion carries. I'm going to take, let's see. So can we take 6.6 to 6.8 as a consent agenda? Do I have a motion to take 6.6 to 6.8?
So moved.
Second.
Do we want to talk about any of these? They're pretty straightforward.
Yeah, they're straightforward.
Okay, any comments or questions on these? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Those carry. Do I have a motion to accept a donation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and so this is a donation from Pelham Little League in the amount of $11,965 to cover the architectural design services and state regulatory approvals necessary for the construction of a new batting cage at Friendship Field. So thank you to Pelham Little League.
Yes, so we're working with them. We're on the front end of it, but this is part of that design process. And again, I think the final project will be great for the kids at Pelham.
Excellent.
I would like to thank them because putting a batting cage in Friendship Field helps the girls. The
Yes.
softball team practices there and
Yep.
does their games there, so it'd be very helpful for them
Yep.
to have something closer than walking all the way across the field. So this is will become in handy and will be used a lot.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again, Pelham Little League. We can move to 7.1. I don't, I think Sean went over this.
Yeah,
This
he
is
touched
for-
on the key pieces. Yep.
Yeah, he touched on the key pieces of this. This is the first reading of the digital device or device use policy, and in parentheses, it's internet-enabled device device use. Mr. Llewellyn went through the sort of the high points of the policy. It very closely follows the law that we just went over. Are there any questions or comments on this first reading?
I would just add, as far as the title, we're kind of updating our existing digital device policy. But as you heard in the presentation, really the shift with the new law is the more appropriate titling would be internet-enabled devices, which is why we put both.
Okay.
So the board can choose, I think, to go with the new title. I'm looking at Valerie for verification. So yeah, just so we wanted folks to get the connection from our old policy to the new, and then we can, if the board is okay with that, in the final, in the second or third reading, we could shift it, the formal title, change that to internet-enabled devices, and that would be in compliance with the law. Everything else within it, we carried over some of the intent from the old policy, but really it's pretty much in direct compliance with the new law and templates that were, for the most part, templates that were provided from the policy services and attorneys.
And when does this need to be approved by?
I believe it's August 1st.
Okay.
So we would ideally, we've got time to do a second reading
Yeah.
and then to approve at our reorg meeting. Or alternatively, we could waive the third at the next meeting. and
Yeah,
approve
I
it.
mean, I definitely want to have a second, right, at least a second.
Yeah, we
because I
have
want
to.
give people the opportunity.
Yeah.
To take a look at it, and then, okay. Any comments or questions at this point? No. Okay, if we can move to 7.2, which is the first reading of Board of Education members nomination and election, but this is the first reading of the policy for the student board member.
Correct. And this is actually an existing policy, board members nomination and election. So the approach with this was to add the pieces about student board members to the existing
Board of Education.
Board of Education, yeah, 1210 policy. So again, this just added pieces that were based in the new regulation and/or designed based on how Sean and I had worked to recommend that we approach this. So, and there's some, I'm looking at the first page, some of these were tweaks, just adjustments in general from legal. So at the bottom of the first page, the addition of J, there's different options for filling, and the board really, most boards reserve the latitude to have a variety of approaches, not just for student vacancies, but for any vacancy of a board member on the board. So that's why you see that letter J added in there in red. And then the section on pages 2 and 3 is predominantly the new language designed to fit how we would like to approach student board members.
Yeah, I see they're not required to stay past 9 p.m., which is good.
Unfortunately, that's pretty important for us because
I know, I'm like, do they have that for the adult
For the
members?
adult.
I know.
For-
That's
You
right.
could drive past
There
that.
was a driver's license issue there, so.
Okay. Now, any comments or questions for now on this? No?
And we
Okay.
do have, we've completed the application process. We'll be setting up interviews to meet with students to make the selection before school's out.
Great. Okay. Do I have a motion to take 8.1 through 9.1 as a consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed, those all carry. 10.1, do we have any new business? No? 11.1, no one's here for public comment. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.